The Illuminati. The Illuminati created us. Tried to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
Hide the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You and whose army, princess? You and whose army?
What is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. Yes, anyways, don't forget everything that we do at the Silver Spook Hui /cooperative /Silver Spook commune is supported by the sales of that game Neofeud, and of course the Patreon support, as well as the direct donations, and of course if you already have Neofeud, you can of course continue to share the stream, like the stream, and help us to keep the streams going, and housing and feeding and clothing of all of our members here of the Silver Spook worker-owned cooperative. Anyways, so yeah, so let's see here. Let me start my music up. Oh, I'm missing that. I am going to just a heads up. There may be I'm probably going to be not streaming for the next 7 days or so, because we have some family here coming, and there'll be a lot of we'll be very occupied with that. So yeah, if you don't see the next week Saturday's stream, that's why. I'll try to upload a video of some type to the account, but yeah, we can't really make any promises, and because we been planning a family visit for a long time, and so that's going to be taking priority for the next week or so. Anyways, yeah, so, and actually give me 1 second. I think I'm gonna have to be right back. While I do that, if you have picked up Neofeud, again, thanks very much to everybody who picked up the game on sale. Oh, a little bit too loud. Thanks everybody who picked up the game on sale. It is greatly appreciated. Does support everything that we do. If you have a second if you had a chance to play Neofeud and you enjoyed it, and you want to consider leaving even a very short review, that would be massively helpful to us, as it increases the likelihood that people will discover and play the game on the Steam side, of course, in the Steam algorithm. And yeah, so oh yeah, I gotta change the sales slideshow. Oops, I'm gonna change that out. But yeah, so give me 1 second. I have to go grab something really quick. But do check out the sequel to Neofeud, Neofeud 2, which is of course still in production. I'm gonna play the trailer for that really quick, and I will be right back. Oh, sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, sorry about that. So anyway, so don't forget, everything that we do is supported by the sales of the game, and of course, to support the completion of Neofeud 2, which is on screen. Anyways, all right, let's get to what I was going to talk about, which is, well, one of the central topics I wanted to bring up, because we did recently see this film. I highly recommend you do it if you are in a dangerous COVID situation, if it's not safe, if you don't have vaccination access and a vaccination, I recommend, well, don't endanger yourself just generally. So follow the proper medical precautions. However, we did recently see Fast and the Furious F9, the second to the final installment of the Fast and Furious franchise, apparently, because they're currently apparently working on the final F10. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to, and as part of the reviewing of that film, since we did just see it, it is a way into some other things I wanted to talk about. In particular, how the Fast and Furious franchise has outdone every other every other Western of any sort, movie. It has outdone every other. I would argue it's not really actually an American movie. It's an international movie. But Vin Diesel and much of the cast, it was made, a lot of it, with a lot of Americans. I don't fully know the whole production process, and I would actually argue it is a very international movie, and so that's part of what has really helped it to be really at the top of the success in terms of box office for 2021. It's beat out every other American or any other Western movie. There are only two movies that have surpassed it, and they're both Chinese. And I know it's a thing I've been bringing that up more often, but those are important signposts for they're important weather vanes for the global economic, international political, and power winds. The direction in which the world is moving, and I argue that the way that it's of course spoil rich pricks versus international family. I would argue is kind of a central theme. And if it's not, I'm going to make it that for this purposes of this review. But that's a direct quote. One of the wealthiest people in the show, a very rich white German right-wing, and they have a term for that, starts with an N. German right-wing coded just a very wealthy, feudal, spoiled little brat, like 20 something or 30 something character in the film who is constantly using the police, militarized police, paramilitary police / military, and millions of dollars worth of tanks and toys and guns and bombs and tear gas. It's just a very wealthy, rich white guy from Europe, from a rich European. His father is like head of state of an unnamed European country. His family is incredibly wealthy. And he says to Vin at one point in the movie, Dominic Toretto, he says, "Oh, did nobody tell you?" Or he says, is it to Toretto or it's to the his Jacob, Dom Toretto's brother, and he says, because Jacob, I don't want to give the plot away, but gets into a argument and a fight with this guy, and he says, "You're just a spoiled rich prick," and then that really wealthy European feudal / capitalist, ultra rich guy says, "Hey, I don't know if you were updated. Like, I'm sorry. Nobody tell you? Spoiled rich pricks run the world." That's like one of my favorite quotes from because that's a very central theme throughout the movie. We have lots of people, right, from a lot of like they're not wealthy people, right? Like Dom is just a mechanic. The Torettos run a little mechanic shop in LA. His father like raced, like NASCAR, like racing cars. But his family, and part of the story is that this family were constantly in debt, and his father had to, I don't want to give it all away, but let's just say like his father had to do things that he didn't want to do because, and it kind of hurt the family because they were poor, right? And they're just poor, like non-white, working class car people in California, right? In LA in particular. And then you have, Letty and the rest of the family, right, are like, Hispanic. You have African American. You have Black African people from the UK, the hacker, the tech specialist. You have, Han, that's Korean, right? But none of these people they're not incredibly wealthy people, They're not all necessarily non-white. There's also part white, and then there's white, but they're all like working class or poor, and they're not just from America. They're from all around the world. They're from Asia. They're from Latin America. They're from Europe. They're from, they're from all over. Of all colors, but they're all international, working class. I would, maybe some of them are, but none of them are. No, actually, I would argue like none of them are really wealthy. They're all like pretty just average people, right? They don't wear fancy clothes, right? They're not, as opposed to, I don't know, all of these people. Let me see if I can get it without my computer blowing up. All of these people who are working for the military-industrial complex, right? Billionaire philanthropist, arms dealer, playboy, literal freaking gods, from space gods. We've got Captain Star Spangled Underpants working for the U.S. military, right, as a representative of the global empire. White man, white Russian woman, but she's good now because she's come to capitalist America land, right? There's you look at the, of course there's this other Marvel that have like, they're starting to get different, people of color in there, and it's not really people of color, but they're also the #1 highest grossing film of all time in the US anyway. It's going to be surpassed by The Internationalist and Chinese movies very soon. The Iron Man is the main character. He is the one who snaps his fingers and defeats Thanos ultimately. He is the most beloved of all the characters, and he is a literal billionaire. Silicon Valley, Wall Street titan, working closely with the United States government and empire as the spearhead of the Western world. And he he's just basically like literally like kind of like living Elon Musk, but fused with the Koch brothers, Bill Gates, and Mr. Biden, you know, and the worst general under Pompeo. Like he is you know, but that's just one guy. But but then you have a bunch of other white people that are in spandex all the time, and like, why do you guys gotta be in spandex all the time? You know, I understand, like in the history, comic books had to be painted and drawn, and it makes it easier to draw the muscles, and you know, it simplifies things for printing and blah 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 blah, and it gives them a very, you know, distinct aesthetic to them, blah blah blah. But you know, it's kind of like but you know, there's a lot of themes here. But then you look at this, you know, I've done multiple streams specifically on Disney movies and comic book movies and problems with them. But anyway, let's go back to the other one. You know, and then you look at you know, this, right? You look at this. You look at Mr. Billionaire Philanthropist, Arms Dealer, Playboy Man, and Star Spangled Underpants, right? Look at these people, and then look at these people. Anyways, so part of it is they're regular working class people. You know, they are international. It's not centered. The Fast and the Furious franchise more accurately represents the actual demographics of Earth, you know, of the human species, which is, you know, there's, you know, 1 out of 8 people or 9 is white. Yes. Most of them are not like pure Aryan white. They don't look like this, you know, they don't look like these people. Most of the Earth don't look like these people, you know. Aryan white man, white American white man, white, you know, Elon Musk, Dogecoin debutante, billionaire, philanthropist, arms dealer, playboy, white man, white. I joined the Navy and I'm gonna blow up Syria and Afghanistan secretly under, you know, U.S. Pretenses of pulling out of Afghanistan while actually funding and supplying and backing continued military actions secretly. That's this character. What is this? What is? Oh, and then there's one black guy. This is not an accurate depiction of Earth, of the international peoples of the world. This is not. This is more accurate. You know. Also, everybody's not in spandex all the time. Come on. You know, when you go swimming, what is this? Is this the international swim team, or is this the Western? Is this the Western? You know, wealthiest of American and feudal German swim team? That's what this looks like to me. That's what that looks like. What is this? You know, that's what that looks like to me. So, anyways, you know, so there's multiple things happening here. So you have an international representation from all around the world. A lot of working classes. Each of them, you know, many of them are mechanics. They're car people. You know, one of them is a computer tech. Some of them, you know, I forgot. Holly knows all of these people's names and all of their actors and the in the world names. I am not as up on my Fast and Furious lore. However, Tyrese Gibson's character and Ludacris's character, you know, they're they come together as comic. They're kind of a comic duo. Ludacris is much more mathematical and it knows the science and the math, which I think is important because it kind of shows like the aesthetic is like, you know, it's like a hip hop sort of aesthetic and such, but he's like extremely good at the math and the science. Like there's one point where they said they're driving through a landmines. I don't want to say where and when, but they're like blasting through this jungle that is a massive minefield, like literally, not metaphorically. And so if they drive too slowly, they'll be blown up into bits of flaming shrapnel. And so Vin asks the Ludacris character, hey, what speed, how fast do we have to go to make sure we don't get blown up while we're driving through jungle and banana trees and coconuts and you know, like kudzu vines and like, I mean, that's rocks and boulders and waterfalls and, you know, jaguars. You got what speed do we have to go to not get blown up? And Ludacris says, you know, calculates it, and it's like 70 miles per hour. So anyway, so like each of them have like their own specialty that they bring. Much of it's focused on auto, but they're all like, you know, they're all working in a particular area. The British, though, in the bottom left here is I don't know if you can see that, is the computer specialist, and part of that is like she doesn't know how to drive. She's black but from Britain, and which is its own thing, and doesn't know how to drive at all, and that becomes a very that's a point of very well utilized comedic shtick, where she's like trying to drive a U-Haul, or it's like a U-Haul with a giant electromagnet in it. Don't ask too much more about it. You're gonna hear a lot about the magnets, I'm sure. You probably have already. She's driving a U-Haul with a giant electromagnet in it that can like pull cars through the sides of walls and, you know, blast, you know, people's silverware through the air while they're eating in outdoor restaurants because they're social distancing because of COVID or whatever it is. And but she doesn't know how to drive at all, so it's just like she's like bumping into things, and but she's like, that's not what I do, you know. It's like I'm the computer specialist, that is my contribution to this team. I don't drive. Nobody drives in London. We don't really need to, you know, because, you know, it's they have public transportation and everything's very close together. They don't really need to. And so anyways, but each character has their own kind of contributions, but they're all like working. Nobody is very well off and wealthy. Nobody is working for the police, with the exception of the one that's kind of on the outs, right? It's Jacob, Dom's brother, played by John Cena, right? Who is on the is in the beginning in a conflict with the Torettos, and in particular Dominic, the main character, played by Vin Diesel. And so he's on the outs, and I think there's a reason why he's in the middle of the blue, is because he is basically working with police / military. It's unclear exactly who, but he is working with the police and the military. And the way that all pans out is actually very, like, people don't give Vin Diesel. I think Vin likes people to underestimate him and think that he's just like some dumb action hero. Maybe he once went to prison for shanking somebody inside of a American muscle car while jumping out of a window and then grabbing onto a rocket powered hang glider. You know, because I don't know, because the characters he plays in his movies are a certain, you know, they're often in the outs. They're often on the wrong side of the law, right? Riddick, right? A literal prisoner going from prison to prison to prison breaking. Dominic Toretto, wanted, being chased in by Paul Walker, by the police in the beginning in the franchise, later on by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? And then later on by his own brother, who has joined the police. So his characters are often being chased by police, right? And so and then they stir up this stuff about, Vin Diesel went to prison, he's a criminal, blah 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 blah. The characters that he plays are that, but Vin is, I feel, actually much smarter than, and has much more to say than he lets on. This is why I've done entire streams about Riddick, right? If you recall, I should probably add that to the slideshow. But anyways, he's there's much more. Because one of the things is, like, if you want to get many butts in seats, you want people to see the movie, like many, like millions upon hundreds of millions, potentially billions, maybe eventually. You have to be able to get. You have to have, bring people there. They're not going to show up for your Marx or your Trotsky manifesto. They're not going to show up for that, right? I mean, that has its own place, in organizing and other things. If you have something to say, they're not going to show up for your thesis, and they're not going to listen to you read your white paper, right? You have to get people there, right? I mean, if you want to reach masses of people, it's not necessarily like you have to, if you did your Marxist-Leninist PhD thesis about why the military-industrial complex must be undone, and it's 600 pages long. It's not saying there's something wrong with that, but when you want to reach masses of people, which is its own very important, it has a very important role in altering the course of world history, right, and global politics, as well as keeping people entertained and global, attitudes towards everything from race to class to different countries to, all these types of things. there is a longer game that Vin Diesel has been playing that I don't think anybody gives him really credit for. Not just him, not him specifically, but him and the people that he works with and the people that are associated with the productions that he chooses to do and chooses not to do. He chose not to be in Fast 2, and I don't think it is a mistake that in Too Fast, Too Furious, it centers on the FBI agent, right? It centers on the FBI agent, not just because it's like a hokey plot and it was, too ham-fisted or not ham-fisted enough, or it's got too many holes. It's not meaty enough to, make an entire movie out of. The reason why I think Vin Diesel chose to be involved in Too Fast, Too Furious, I would argue, is because let's look at Too Fast and Furious is a 2003 action. It was the second one after the original in 2001, right? It stars Paul Walker, who is a cop in Too Fast and Furious, right? Unlike the first one, and I'm gonna make this smaller while I talk about this year. Unlike the first one, well, actually we'll leave it up. After letting Dominic Toretto escape from authorities, former LAPD officer Brian O'Connor, right, that's Paul Walker, flees from Los Angeles to escape prosecution. He subsequently relocates to Miami and makes a living participating in illegal street races, driving a heavily modified silver Nissan Skyline. Given a deal by his former FBI agents and customs agent Markham to go undercover and bring down a drug lord in exchange for clearance of his criminal record. So the second one more focuses on the cop, a white guy cop, and there's also a white guy cop who is now trying to. You're playing the United States Police, right? The United States Police, military and paramilitary and everything in between, right? You're going back to working. You're going on the opposite side, right? So I think that's a major reason why. And Vin Diesel, like famously. Or if you're some kind of weird wrestling nerd come car mechanic / Vin Diesel stan, right? But maybe not as famous if you don't know all that. It's a movie that Vin turned down, right? He said, I'm not going to do that movie. And I think the big reason for that is because it was a movie that glamorizes and glorifies the United States police, the United States government, which is an empire, a racist, white supremacist, capitalist empire. I don't know if you noticed. After 31 million people and the largest uprising in the history of the United States, under George Floyd's murder by a United States police officer. And Vin said, I'm not going to be in this movie because this is not really what I'm about. I don't want, and I think it doesn't really have to do ultimately with whether the drama between the characters is hot and interesting enough, whether the cars are fast enough, whether the stunts are wild enough, or Evel Knievel and unhinged enough. Like, we're gonna drive off the side of a cliff, get caught by a velociraptor, being carried by a pterodactyl, and be dropped onto a Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's my pitch for Jurassic Furious, or Fast and Park. Fast and Dinosaur Park. The Fast and Furious Jurassic Park fusion. Okay, I want 20% of the movie revenue, right? Especially the Chinese one, because that's where most of the money is going to be made. If that movie ever gets made, because you heard it here first, kids. American muscle car driven by Vin Diesel with the cyber arm. I'm just gonna throw that in. I'll give that one to you for free, because I just like cyberpunk. Vin Diesel with a cyber arm driving a muscle car off the edge of well, you probably kind of Iron Man. I was gonna say Malibu with Iron Man's palace and then blow it up, and as you're flying off. But Vin Diesel driving off the edge of Mount Everest or something, and then get caught by a pterodactyl, right? Carrying a velociraptor in its. The velociraptor uses its 6-inch claw to hook into the the NOS valves of Vin Diesel's muscle car, and then the pterodactyl carries it, drops it onto a Tyrannosaurus, and then they take off, and then they defeat the U.S. police and military and the entire Western capitalist hell world. That's a pretty good script, I think. But anyway, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just floating the trial balloon. I'm just floating the rocket-propelled trial balloon into orbit, like Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris do on their what was that car? The Pontiac. the Pontiac Fiero. So, how about a pterodactyl carrying a Pontiac Fiero, a rocket-propelled pterodactyl with ninja zombies coming out of its butt, carrying a Pontiac Fiero to the the Chinese space station, because the International Space Station is gonna be turning into rubbish soon. Anyways, because they don't have any money and any talent because of capitalism. But anyways, so like I think that Vin didn't choose to do this film because of the centering, as I've been, this is a common theme, I know I've been bringing it up, but centering the police, U.S. military, United States interests, the U.S. imperial interests, its ruling class interests, to be clear, and criminalizing Argentinian drug lords. This is because Vin could see what was happening here. What is this script, right? What is it when the what is it when U.S. agents, right, like the one that's being played by the murderer in Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? When the U.S. Customs agent going to Argentina to stop drug lord. This is just standard American it's kind of like what America does to Haiti, right? Which is what? Coup it, try to crush it financially, economically, fund death squads. Colombia, Argentina, right? Where it put all of its Nazis that it saved in Germany. America, there's 70% more Nazis there's 70% Nazis in the German government. There are more Nazis in power after America didn't win World War II, but the Soviet Union and China did most of the fighting. And so in South America is where they put a lot of their Nazis and help them. And, and America is constantly intervening under the Monroe Doctrine in South Central America, branding all of the leaders down there as drug lords, right? While America backs the drug lords. And then this is whenever there's a movie with an American cop, agent, CIA, FBI, any alphabet soup, anyone from the US ruling class and their military and their forces going into South Central America and they are stopping drug deals or something, that is always imperialist propaganda, right? Vin lived for much of his life in Brazil because guess what? Brazil has its own problems, but he spent a lot of time in Brazil, in all over South America. I believe he's lived in multiple countries down there, and he knows people around the world. He is an international person, right? Who is not white in America, and he's too black to play white characters, and he's too white to play black characters. He has a whole show about that, and so he's like, I'm not gonna make a movie that falsely depicts America as saving Argentinian South Americans from evil drug lords. I'm not gonna make that movie for you. I think that's part of it. The other part is, why are we standing the U.S. cops? He's not gonna say that. He's not gonna say that, right? He's just gonna kindly decline to make that movie. And of course, I don't know what he said. I'm reading this into that. So let's be clear. I don't know what he actually said. But that's like the choices that he makes. So he didn't do that one, and then he did he did the other ones, right? And then he produced this one, right? Where let's just go through the plot, like Fast 9. In this one, let's go down here. So I'm gonna try to not spoil it for you, so don't read this if you don't want to get spoiled. I'll throw something else while I'm reading this, so you don't get spoiled. So in Fast and Furious 9, it deals with Vin Toretto's father, his brother. It's a lot more family. It's very family centric. It's very family feud, family ties. But anyways, as the race resumes, so basically, I'm not gonna tell you the whole beginning, but his father has a tragic event happen. His brother and himself kind of split over this event that happened to his father. They're kind of blaming each other for their fathers. I believe that it's kind of known what happened, right? But they blame each other for the father's death, and they've been in a long fight over this. And then and his brother's played by John Cena, right? And the character, the main kind of antagonist is Cypher, who is an incredibly wealthy, well-connected, military-trained, kind of unknown entity, but is very white and very racist. It comes out eugenicist, in fact, and actually makes a comment and says like, I don't know why I shouldn't have worked with Dominic Toretto, because you, the other one, the brother Jacob, played by John Cena, you have more Nordic features. You have a superior strain in the polluted Toretto bloodline. She's literally talking about like he must be superior because he has more Aryan blood in him. And so that's one of the main antagonists. That's a recurring character played by Charlize Theron, as a kind of ice snow, like kind of like the Ice Queen, fucking like eat your throat, kind of like a Kerrigan sort of character a little bit, but not exactly. But in the sense of very ruthless and very murderous, and very powerful within the world. But anyways, so the Cypher character, and then you also have a character that Cypher is working with, Otto. Where is this guy, Otto? Yeah, let's see if I can find that one. Otto is the European feudal descendant, right? Otto, his associate. Otto is a billionaire. His father is a head of state of an unnamed European country, right? He's incredibly wealthy. He has basically infinite amounts of military cops. He's military. Like, they've got all the rocket launchers, they've got SWAT, guns, they've got multiple tanks, they've got aircraft, they've got they've got attack copters, they've got like all of the best tactical gear. They're like, he's got thousands of men worth of SWAT teams. There's scenes where what he doesn't do much. This main antagonist, the Otto character, he just kind of like gets on his phone and he says, "Daddy, give me more money." And everybody, I don't care who, like, bring the grenade launchers, bring the anti-tank rifles, bring all of the choppers, the guns, the F-16s, bring the Millennium Falcon. I want Chewbacca if you can get him, right? He's just like, give me all of the weapons, and then kill this guy. Just turn him into a pancake, smash him flat, right? He's a spoiled, rich, European, colonial, feudal, capitalist, probably slavery, apartheid, South African, emerald money. He's just like the richest, whitest, spoiled, Austrian or German brat. It's unclear what, he didn't say which country he's from, right? Because it's kind of like his father's the head of state. But he's just like the ultimate like descendant of global imperialism and colonialism from Europe. And all he does is just like talk about, look at all these sweet hoes I've got. He's like talking about, I've got all these are not the cheap girls. I have $3,000 escorts. I bought all of them, right? And he's like, look at my mansion. I am not some nouveau riche. I am the real money. I am the real rich. I'm not one of those. I started I made my money in an American popsicle stand and then became a McDonald's executive. I'm the real money, right? My father is like a WTO executive. My uncle, runs Interpol. He has Interpol, in fact, come in, and he's like, I have Interpol on speed dial. When I need Interpol, I call them and they come, right? When I need the SAS, if I need the German secret police, if I need American bombs, I call up and then they come in. If I need an F-16, Daddy flies one in. Daddy makes the call to Mr. Biden, and then Biden flies one in because my daddy is busy, trying to get Ukraine wrested away from any Eastern, non-Western G7 following powers, right? My other uncle is over there in Afghanistan, commanding the secret killing of more Uyghur Muslims, with the backing of, ETIM, right? With America delisted from the internet. Anyways, that's the ones that were actually blowing up and killing Muslims, including Uyghurs, and then many of them were and radicalized and fighting with ISIS. So I have all the connections, I have all the military, I have all the money, I have all the cops, I have all the bombs, and I am a rich, spoiled prick from, again, right? I am a spoiled, rich prick. Otto von Hitler, I'm Otto von Biden, I'm Otto von Gates, I'm Otto von Koch, I'm Otto von Jobs, and I have all the money and all the power, and I will crush you by calling in all of my military and police and getting them all killed, because a lot of them, or actually not a lot, they don't use guns like all the time in the fast team, right? But and so that's what I kind of like about, and he does this multiple times where he just like calls. Now all the guys show up and then they kind of like don't take Vin and them down. But the important part is that the antagonist is global, imperial, colonial, military, police, secret police operating under white supremacy and capitalism internationally, right? That's really the meta. If you pick it apart very closely, that's the meta story of Fast 9. I mean, that's the in the what is this? What in the matrix of this movie, or what is being normalized in the ether, right? In the subcode of this world, right? What is how are the police depicted? How are the military depicted? How are government agents? Is it like one bad apple, but then the U.S. military is actually good? Is it like, there's one, there's lots of good rich people, and then there's one kind of black sheep that's, and then he's like a Batman antagonist, and he's the bad one, but Batman's gonna beat him up? Or is Batman bad? Because Batman is a billionaire, arms dealer, right? Philanthropist, also known as vigilante, saving New York from the crime that he created by the greatest crime, which is hoarding billions of dollars, denying healthcare, housing, education, and basic needs to people so that they commit crime to get it, right? So what is the meta story of the world, right? The meta story of this world is it's rich pricks running the world, and that's why the world's fucked up, right? And all of their military, all of their international imperialist, capitalist systems, structures, and methods are the problem, and international family. I mean, international solidarity between working classes, not necessarily just non-white, but I mean, disproportionately, the planet is not white, and even of the white, they're not rich, right? There's like, if you look at who in the world, like let's represent the world, right? How many billionaires are there, right? How many billionaire and gods and American well-paid, well-respected soldiers are there in the world? I mean, not that many, actually, not that many. A lot of the soldiers that get out, right, they're being screwed by the VA, like Jesse Ventura and all of his friends, right? They're getting. Also, if you join the military, you're 2 to 3 times more likely to commit suicide and be dead much earlier than you ever thought, and depression rates are multiple times higher. So that's what they should tell everybody. And just as one of the military service members, right? So that's another lying about the U.S. military. That's a false depiction of the U.S. military, which everybody, in terms of the quality of life and what happens to the soldiers themselves, and on top of the terrible things you will do and who you work for, right? But so that's why, to my mind, it's not necessarily like, I would argue also that it's not necessarily that it has a Fast and the Furious, the entire franchise, with the exception of maybe Fast 2, because some Hollywood military industrial complex entertainment arm propaganda makers for the Pentagon wrote Fast 2, and then that's what Hollywood does, right? And Vince said no. There was another film, Triple X, the second Triple X, rehabilitates the U.S. military and the U.S. Ruling class. And Vince said, no, I don't want to be in that movie. And then he's like, I'm going to be in this other one. I'll be in this one. I'm not going to be in that one, because that's some imperialist bullshit. I mean, he's never going to come out and say that that's what it is. I don't know what this in his head, but this is what I see looking at what he chose to and chose not to be in, and what he really worked hard to produce and what he didn't produce, right? And not just him, but other people that he's kind of surrounded with. And it's not that it's like he has Vin is like some kind of secret anti-imperialist communist, and he's a Russian Chinese plant or something. No, or some other American nonsense. You know, it's not like I don't know, who knows, right? I think it's just like he's trying to be honest about the world, right? But in the Western, as I've recently talked about, hearkening back to our discussion about Voltaire and the illusory Western Christian historiography, which dialectical materialism, also known as the Chinese methods of describing the past and dealing with it in the present in a dialectical way. As Voltaire was describing the way that the Chinese system operates, as an antidote to illusory, basically lie-filled, half-truth, half-truth, lie, and manipulation-filled fictional Christian, because the West was always Christian, particularly in Voltaire's Catholic time under the Sun King Louis XIV. Because of the Western world's capitalist, imperialist, completely disinformation based, as the CIA has admitted. You know, the CIA admit what Voltaire alluded to, which is the CIA said, William Casey, we will know when the disinformation campaign is complete, when everything that the American public believes is false. So this is the Hollywood news report and the Wurlitzer jukebox that the CIA uses, right, which called all of the publications, the entire liberal, academic, intellectual, so-called education system, the New York Times, the university system to a large extent, and all of the echo chambers of every water cooler, every pastor's brunch, every workplace, every kitchen table, everybody's home, everybody's television set, everybody's radio is the Wurlitzer jukebox to blast high frequency Western Christian illusory historiography, right? And so when you make a film that just says the truth, right? It just doesn't lie, then it sounds like communist propaganda. Or when I describe it in this way, now Vin doesn't. I'm not saying that it's communist propaganda. I'm just saying like it's an honest film about the realities of the world. You know, internationally, international politics, what the makeup of the human beings in the world are. Mostly not white, right? Mostly not rich, mostly working class, right? Being beat up by cops, right? And then the world in 2020 had a wake-up call. Holy crap. Actually, cops in America, but not just there, Australia, Britain, all over the place, have been doing terrible things for their white supremacist, capitalist, imperialist, Western-centric ruling classes. Holy crap, right? And then that's 2020. But that's like the moment of truth under centuries of the wool pull over billions of people's eyes of the illusory Western. It's just this disinformation campaign to maintain the ruling class, feudal slavery, and capitalist and colonial power for long periods of time, right? So that's why, to my mind, you know, like this film is just cinematically in a very action-packed, very popcorn munchable. I mean, be careful though, don't get COVID-19. You know, chewing on your buttery, overpriced tub of salt, and heart attacks waiting to happen. But I'm not saying don't go to the just don't accidentally breathe in other people's aerosolized epsilon variant that's 3 times as deadly COVID. Just be careful, don't do that. I don't know what the epsilon variant, I just made that up as a future science fictional variant that will also turn your I imagine the United States, which has used bioterror weapons, for example in the Operation Paperclip, to bomb with bubonic plague and cholera Korea and China in the Korean War. America is the confirmed actual bioterror weapon user. I imagine Epsilon, or maybe Omicron, or Epsilon for the United States variant. They'll make a variant that turns you Christian and then kills you, kind of like being in a Canadian residential school, and then celebrate that. It's gonna call that the Christian variant. The Western variant is the one that turns you Christian, and then it's 20 times more deadly. So at least you were saved before millions of people died in North Korea when America tries to start a war there and bombs it again with actual bioterror weapon constructed in its lab, unlike what it accuses China of doing. But anyways, that's kind of off topic. So when you are honest about these movies, you know, when you're honest in your movie, it can feel like. No, actually, well, in this movie, people are too busy. This is a good thing. This is a good thing about making these kind of popcorn movies, right? There's a time to have very complex, I look at airing out my PhD in literature. Oh my God, I'm $300,000 in student debt. Please give me some money on Patreon. Oh God, Omni and science fiction authors, NASFIC, can I please come to the science fiction convention? Because I'm sick of working at Jiffy Lube. I just got COVID and my wife has cancer, and I'm being charged $70,000, right? And I understand there's a place for people that are pissed off. I wrote so many beautiful words into my manifesto, into my college white paper on the problems of international imperialism. I have an entire international, anti-imperialist website, and I have a social media account. I do all this hardcore journalism, and I try to explain to people. I have these like really witty, metaphor laden, illusion filled. Like I've read everyone in the entire New York Times and Harvard reading list, and I can cite all of the Marx, all of the Engels, all of the Plato. I've got de Tocqueville, I've got Smallville, I've got pop culture and old white culture. I've got Europeans, I've got references to the gods, I've got the Greek gods, I've got Zeus, and I've got Hades. This is such a erudite, anti-capitalist novel that's 400 pages long or whatever. Nobody's reading it. Nobody's reading my amazing 500 page magnum opus that's like Das Kapital for the present. Why is nobody like reading this or coming to my seminar on my bread daddy? And like there's a place for that kind of stuff, but also it's kind of like sometimes, and I say this as somebody who does like to write. Neofeud is a very writerly game. It's a lot of reading, and a lot of it is about the story and about the lore, world building, and a lot. It's a very kind of like science fiction, allusions to the literature, both sci-fi and traditional. You got your Leviathan Hobbes reference. You've got your mysticism and the Kabbalah. You've got your cyberpunk. You've got your pop culture of the present meshed with your, de Tocqueville and your Voltaire quotes. You've got your anarchy. You've got all of this. You've got your Matrix philosophical, sense of wonder. Am I in a simulation? Blah blah blah. What does it mean to be a sentient being? You've got all of this, nerd entertainment going on inside of your brain, your internal homunculus, right? And like, oh my God, I spent like 30 years worth where I could have been going to parties and having like muscle car races against Hondas with rockets on their butt, and then having all kind of kinky sex with all kind of cool people from around the world at fancy parties. And I spent all the time reading books. Holy shit. Please someone validate the years worth, the tens of hundreds of thousands of hours I spent reading, Marx little scratches on bits of tree bark called text print or ebooks. Please validate that experience, right? And those are people who are like, hey, thanks a lot, but then sometimes you just have to make a big splashy action movie that the other 90% of the world watches, and then they take a lot of important things from that. It's not like they're not all gonna become communists and international anti-imperialists because of that, but it reaffirms something when you have a big splashy action movie that millions and millions of people see. Again, the number one box office success in the entire Western world outside of the Chinese movies, because China is, as I bring up again and again, China has already won against the United States ultimately economically in that field. The United States is an abject failure. New York is not worth the rotten cement, bed bugs, and corroded water pipes that make up its, overpriced slums. So that's important, to me. That's why I was like, and when I watched this film, I'm like, okay, it is an action movie. You don't need a PhD to watch this movie. You don't have to have like written a white paper in, Philosophy 206 on Hobbes' Leviathan and deontology versus virtue ethics to get this movie. You can just show up, you watch the movie, and then you go back to your job being underpaid as a neo-feudal serf at Jiffy Lube, or you go back to your McDonald's job, or you go back to, being paid, $7.50 an hour to do the advanced adversarial programming on Boeing 737s, right? And then you go, God damn it, yeah, these rich, white, spoiled pricks that run the world, they're paying me crap to, for example, maintain to root out all of the 0-day hack attacks on the Colonial Pipeline. God damn it. Right? They're sitting around in Europe calling in their Millennium Falcon and their mommy and daddy's Interpol and American military smart cluster bomb munitions fired from a Falcon or a Winter Soldier, right? I mean, Falcon is a literal embodiment of the United States Air Force. And like, nobody really, ultimately it's kind of like, who really, who relates to these fucking people, really? I mean, it's cool, it's nostalgic, but really, who relates to these fucking people who are Disney is very closely interconnected to the military. This is part of why I would argue this is part of why Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Vince split on there's that famous fight where they split over one of the Fast and Furious films. And I don't want to say I don't know Dwayne Johnson, I do know where he went to school. I was a social worker and a STEM teacher trying to help kids stay out of ghettos, off of drugs, in the area where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson spent his impoverished high school. It's called Kalihi Palama. That's where I was, learning how to rap to help the kids like not go to prison for the rest of their life and mechanically separate Tyson chicken for 25 cents an hour. So, or make vegan and non-vegan Safeway or Whole Foods cheese. Oh, that's right. We're not on Amazon, so I can talk shit about the rival neo-feudal power. I can talk shit about the other Death Star. Yeah, so fuck Jeff Bezos. But the split between Vin and Dwayne was because I think part of it was the Dwayne character, kind of like the Paul Walker, and then the movie where the U.S. Empire wanted to make an entire film that centers the police, the FBI, and the U.S. imperial interests, right? The capitalist interests, which are in the interests of the police that are the leg breakers and the stormtroopers for it. And Dwayne was like, for whatever reason, like, it was a movie that was going to be the military and the police and the federal police were going to be more centered in the same way that Fast 2, right, was going to be more centered. And Vince said, I don't want to do that. I want to make a movie with all women. How about that? Let's make Fast and Furious, girls, Fast and Furious, girls blast off or something into space, probably with a, Fiero tethered to, Elon Musk's like, I picture the guys who are working on the rocket as like Elon Musk had the cops come and break the wrists of the actual, jet propulsion laboratory specialists after they asked for a raise, and Elon had the SWAT cops of the United States Californian police forces beat up the unionized engineers at his Tesla, his SpaceX factory, and then those pissed off workers who said, fucking rich, spoiled prick, right? Fucking rich, spoiled prick, Elon Musk, Mr. Rocket Man, fuck you, I'm gonna go start a Toretto backyard, rocket development worker co-op, and we're gonna make better rockets than you, right? That's what I kind of picture it as. Because they're not highly funded, the guys that are even making the rockets. And it comes up that, it's all about the math. It's all about the math and the numbers of the science. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And he's like, motherfucker, are you putting duct tape on your spacesuit? This is like, we're holding this together with band-aids and prayers. What is this rocket, right? And then, but then Ludacris, there's a scene where, like, Tyrese Gibson is kind of like, he's very much the comic, he's kind of playing the comic, I forget which one of Laurel and Hardy was the more zany guy. But anyways, but then Ludacris is like, no, if the numbers and the math and the science are right, it's gonna work. It doesn't matter what it looks like, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like if the engineering and the science is right. I think that's a very important message, right? Because there's a lot of, in the white capitalist, colonizer imperial world, what it looks like is very important, right? Does it have a nice manicured lawn with polished golden banisters and beautiful, does the Florida hotel, for example, right? In capitalism, what matters is not what's in it, what's inside, right? What matters is what it looks like. Florida hotel collapse. What matters is not the science, the math, the quality, right? What matters is, what does a Surfside hotel look like? What does it look like? Does it have nice, white sand beach? Does it have pristine coconut trees around it? Does it look like a nice, does it have a nice luxury jacuzzi? Is the walls nice and white? Is the glass beautiful and polished? What is the surface, right? That's capitalism, right? It's like the nice shiny outer shell around a toxic debt or a toxic loan or a rotten red dye filled poisonous McDonald's burger, right? It tastes good, but the inside it's gonna kill you, right? Kind of like all the way they build their buildings, which is, it looks good. The capitalist who put it up and a bunch of contractors, they made millions of dollars, and then it killed hundreds of people, right? Because the math, the science, the quality, whether it works, accuracy, who cares? Let the U.S. military, like even their own troops, let them have rusted out bottoms of their, Jeeps. Who gives a shit? We already made the money selling them the Jeep. Just give them the rusted out Jeep and let them get blown up by IEDs in Iraq. Who cares? Don't give them Kevlar. Who cares if the F-16s can fire their fucking missiles, right? Doesn't matter. We already sold the F-16 and I made $1 billion, and I'm the executive of Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. I don't care. I had a friend who was in the military. He literally said, like, I was training actually Saudi pilots to fire them at Yemen, but I was training the pilots and working on these planes every day. The F-16 and F-30, I forget F-16 and F-35. They were coming back into the shop because you'd pull the trigger and the semiconductors and the wires and the computer guidance systems and the computer firing systems were breaking every day. So, right? Because for the Boeing Corporation, for the Lockheed Corporation, capitalist Western corporation, right? Selling rich, spoiled pricks all their guns and bombs and shit with central bank printed fiat, quantitative infinity money. They don't care whether the bomb fires. They don't care whether the, ship fires. If it fires half the time, that's fine. We'll just sell twice as many F-35s, right? That way, if you fly 2 and you fire 1 missile, it doesn't matter. We're gonna blow up all of the Yemenis children's preschools. We're gonna kill them a lot faster than the way that they kill the residential school children in Canada. But it's the same process of murdering indigenous non-white children, or murdering non-white children for the profit of the oil industry, backed by the West. Western oil companies in Iraq, deals with the Saudis in Yemen, and for the profit of the people selling the methods of mass murder called F-35s. So, and the Tomahawk missiles that go on them. So, but the quality doesn't really matter. What matters is quantity. What matters is the cash flow. If you could sell, $500 billion worth of no income, no jobs, no assets, $7.50 Applebee waitresses, $1.5 million overpriced Floridian real estate, right, in McMansions, that they then default on and destroy the entire global capitalist world economy, and then China has to save the West because China is an actual socialist country, but that's another story. Then, we're gonna sell that garbage. We're gonna take that toxic subprime debt and we're gonna dump it into your mother and your father's fireman, nurse, and teacher pension funds in collateralized repackaged debt obligations, right? Kind of like dumping a bunch of sawdust into the base of what should be a concrete solid foundation, what should be solid steel, tempered properly, according to the math, according to the science, in the Surfside Hotel in Florida. But we'll just melt down some aluminum tin cans and pour it in there. Let's take some of Justin Trudeau's steel straws and stick them inside of the Surfside Hotel. We'll call that the rebar. We'll save some money. We'll make a little more money, right? Building housing that will kill hundreds of people and possibly tank worth hundreds of millions of dollars Floridian tourist vacations because they don't want to get killed in a collapsing hotel while they're trying to, you know, get a bikini tan, sip some orange juice, and get laid on the Muscle Beach and maybe catch a few waves in the nice azure water. They don't want to die in the middle of that. But that doesn't matter to the person that's building the hotel, right? They just want to make as much money as possible. So we're gonna put sawdust in your foundation. We're gonna use incorrect. We're gonna use the incorrect ratio of cement to water or sand, and we're gonna not do proper maintenance because we'll save money and we'll make more money. Every American should be terrified that their buildings will collapse. They will collapse because America does not care about you, your condo, your apartment building, your office building. It doesn't care about your water. It doesn't care about your house. It doesn't care about your health care. It doesn't care about the wildfires that will incinerate you and your family. That's why you need if you're in California, get yourself, like the Kardashians and the Kanyes and the Taylor Swifts, your own $1 million a year private firefighting team, because there will be no public infrastructure to save you from, exploding cop gender reveal parties, setting on fire the rest of what has not burnt. And Death Valley reached nearly the world's hottest recorded temperature ever, and we're not even close to done with summer. So, like that. But that's another important message, which is that you got to go by the math, you got to go by the science, right? Don't go by what it looks like, right? And also, when you put love and care into a thing, then it works. It doesn't matter like if the thing is old, right? There's a lot of old vehicles and the old stuff in Vietnam, right? But they maintain their mopeds, they maintain their machinery. Not everything looks nice, but it is properly maintained with the resources that they have. And if there is a problem, they don't endanger their own citizens. They're currently having, like, because of the vaccine apartheid and the extreme contagion of the Delta variant, and also the economic difficulties, they're having a spike. But so is America. Everybody's having a Delta spike right now. And but they did an amazing job for over a year of preventing 10,000 times per capita the deaths in their country from COVID than the United States, right? So anyway, I'm kind of off the topic, but that's another theme that I wanted to kind of jump on. That's an important theme, and also it's important for people, as somebody who was a STEM teacher in a ghetto, right? As I often bring up, I was a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics instructor for under-resourced children, poor Puerto Rican escapees from that colonial hell, Honduran asylum seekers, Filipino American-backed fascism in Philippines escapees, migrants from China, from Vietnam, in the Chinatown and in the Kalihi Palama ghettos, Samoan, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He literally lived there. He stole Snickers and Twix from the same 7-Eleven that I would stop and pick up, Rockstar, or I'm sorry, unbranded, caffeinated, and CQ12 with taurine-filled drinks so that I could stay awake in the class. The same 7-Eleven, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would stop by, and he stole because he didn't have any money. In high school, he said this, and he said, whenever I go back to my town, Kalihi Palama, where my uncle wrestled at the Kalihi Palama Community Center, I always go back to that 7-Eleven and buy like 20 Snickers because I feel bad about it, right? I've got all this money now. I come back and I so like that's the same area that I worked in, and getting kids like energized and thinking about, this is why I taught first Lego League robotics, first robotics league, Vex robotics, where we'd have kids that could barely speak English, and then within 6 months, but they would be programming in C#, using ultrasonic sensors and robot actuators in Lego pieces or in more advanced first robotics or in Vex robotics to navigate. And one of them was actually a building collapses and a robot. You have to design a Lego robot to go in and get the little Lego people with robot arms, right? Because let's say it's hot or it's toxic, and to pull off with actuators, right? With computer programming, with STEM engineering, and using ultrasonic LiDAR, using sound and light sensors, and a lot of math and science and engineering, And that was it. And then we have these big competitions in First Lego League where we go to. It's like a basketball or a football or a sports game where everybody comes and everybody. There's the music is blasting. The theme for Mortal Kombat, not Mortal Kombat, but Are You Ready to Rumble? You got the crowd going, and it's like, and now the main event. The Kalihi Palama, Koa, the Warriors, Hawaiian word for Warriors, or the Kalo, versus the Waianae Leafs, or the Waianae Kahunas, or I don't know what the team was, right? So all the teams from around, right, would face off, and so we'd have, again, all these impoverished kids. These kids were like literally living in the side of the street, no slippers, right? Samoan, Tongan, Fijian, Pacific Island, black, poor white kids, like the international family of Fast and Furious, right? Working class, or most of them poorer, a lot of them, but a lot of parents were working class too. We had one of the family was Hawaiian, Chinese, Filipino. Their dad was a full-time Jiffy Lube mechanic, and the mom was a full-time dental secretary working in a dental or doctor's office. I can't remember exactly. And they both lived in a van with the 3 kids, both of them working full-time. Not unlike Dominic Toretto's father, working really hard but still behind on all of the bills and the rent and the food and unable to afford their basic needs. And their kids would come to the class, and I taught them, how to code, STEM, and the after-school program that I did as part of the social services, social work, was to get these kids learning science and tech and things that they would never have access to, and not just to learn it, but to get excited about potentially being in a career in that field in the future, instead of just selling meth, working at McDonald's for starvation wages, poisoning your community, and boosting cars. Well, I guess that part, they might boost a few cars in not necessarily doing boosting cars all the time, but I did have a little Grand Theft Auto convicts in my class who said, why am I wasting my time in this competency-based diploma class? I could just go steal some more Audis. They'd be like, fuck this class. And I'd be like, well, you got to show up. Anyways, that's a long story. But anyway, you can play Neofeud and learn about that. Why I want to stay in school? I would have tried to straighten out going to school. Bullshit. My school's a fucking meth lab. And the last day I went, I got beat to a bunch of racist cops for looking at funny. What am I do? My best deal is to keep, slanging dope down here, or boosting the cars and selling off the rims. That's a character from Neofeud. Anyways, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. But hey kids, actually it's good to learn your math. Hey kids, it's actually good to study and be like Ludacris. Learn your math and your science, because without that you're never going to be able to get through the minefield, because you got to get to 75. If you can't get to 75, you're going to get blown up by American placed international death squad minefields to back coups of pink tide socialist Latin American revolutions. So drive fast, otherwise American coup death squads will blow you up. Anyway, they do actually drive very quickly. Ludacris has to use his incredible math, science, and physics calculations to figure out how fast to go through the Colombian minefield that you can watch when you watch Fast 9. Anyways, so that's a lot of to me it's very important stuff that's happening in the movie. Representation is good. Representation isn't enough, right? Because for example, President Obama didn't solve the problems of so many people of color in America, of course, right? And representation in movies is good, also not enough. I would argue that if it's hollow representation, it's just a black face or a non-white face in a high place, or a non-white face on a silver screen, even in a planet-wide box office exploding, that's not enough. But I feel like Fast 9, it's not just, hey, look, there's a bunch of brown faces with all white people writing all the scripts, doing everything behind the scenes, producing, directing, managing, funding, calling all the important shots and gatekeeping what and what not be said. It is people of color, and not just people of color in the United States too. That's very important. It's people of color within the United. There's diversity within the United States, and then there's also people that are from outside of the United States, right? From Korea, from South America, from the UK, from I can't remember everywhere, but there's people from all over the world, South American countries. I don't think I have anyone specifically from Africa, but there's people from around the world. There's definitely black people, right? But and then the decisions that are being made, the story, that's an important difference, right? For example, I talked about how Kim's Convenience, right? Kim's Convenience has representation, right? It's a show that has all Asian characters, mostly Asian characters, right? It's a show that has mostly Asian characters, but it's virtually every single writer, producer, designer, and the decisions about what goes in the story, how things are shot, is all being made by white people. That's what Kim's Convenience said. White Canadians. And so that is a kind of hollow representation, because you can see a bunch of Asian faces, but the story, and also the only show that got a spin-off show was the white lady in the show. Everyone else is gone. So it's a show that has a lot of Asians, but it's a white, and they say the Kim's Convenience cast and actors were saying, hey, we were told that we were going to have input, and we were going to have, like, as Asian Canadians, and our lives and experiences, right, would be listened to and drawn from. We would have input into shaping the narrative and what happens in this show and the scripts, right, and the characters. And then what many of the cast have said is that was not the case. What would happen was we might suggest certain things, and the white writers room, what they said was basically all white. They were not Asians, and none of them would just say, this is the story that you're going to do this. And but part of it is because the white writers have their own perceptions of Asians, and let's be clear, Vancouver, which is in Canada, had the highest increase and one of the worst Asian hate and Asian violence and anti-Asian racism, in the time in which we had skyrocketing exponential 2,000, 4,000 anti-Asian violence and incidents, right? And Vancouver had the 800% increase, the worst in the entire North America. All of the US, all of Canada, it was in Canada where the worst anti-Asian racism, a city in Canada where that worst came out. And I don't think it's a mistake that the this doesn't just show up just because it's fomented. It was always burning, as KJ No, important educator of Asian diaspora said, burning in the background of all of the West's psyche, history, in every American and Canadian and every Westerner is this smoldering coal of anti-Asian racism that's always been there, because Chinese and the colonization of Asia, in particular China, the building of the railroads, the West Coast, all of that, and then the hatred that comes with that, and the racism that comes with that as an outgrowth of colonialism, as synergistic with colonialism and the wars, is always in the background. So it was already there in Canada, in the United States. It was inflamed by a lot of the military industrial complex war propaganda to do threat inflation of the Chinese fear, of the Chinese military, the Chinese threat, right? But it was always there. And Convenience, I've said, like, we have experienced Asian racism. Every Asian in America and in Canada and in everywhere in the West, they have all experienced it. They just have not been as vocal as they have not been as vocal, and it hasn't been as heard by non-Asians as other ethnicities. But it has always been there. And the Kim's Convenience were trying to say, hey, showrunners, Canadian showrunners, we would like to have some of our actual stories, not just kind of like, Asians talk funny. Oh, Asians run the convenience store and that's funny. Oh, the Asians are all obsessed with money and Christian and hyper managing their children, and white North American perceptions of what it means to be Asian, right? Because that's what they said. It's basically, it was all the white Canadians' perceptions that was going into the writer's room that went into the final show. And that's hollow to me. That's hollow. Anthony Mackie has said the same thing about all the movies that he's been in. He said the only movie where there ever has been not 98, for every other movie that he's been in, there was 98% white people in the producer, the funding, the direction, the shot calling, the script writing, all that behind the scenes stuff. And that's every Marvel movie that he's been in, right? Who runs Marvel? It's wealth, it's spoiled rich pricks, and the U.S. military. That's who runs Marvel and Disney. So all of these, he said, everybody behind all those Disney movies that I was in were always everybody white, and very rich usually, or related to rich people. And the only one was Black Panther, where there was actual, like, whatever the front was, like if it was, Anthony Mackie, in Falcon or whatever movie it was, right? The cast might have been a little more diverse, right? Because we want to look like we care. But he said it was always basically kind of hollow because we're all performing blackness as white people want us to, right? We're all performing our race as white people see it, not our experience as we see it, right? And he said the only one where that really happened was in Black Panther that he's ever been on, and in movies he's been in. He said in Black Panther we had black director, black producer, black funding, the funding really matters. Economic power, it's like, that's a whole nother long thing, but asking the oppressor for, asking a unethical, amoral oppressor for economic support to represent yourself is not in the long term a solution to liberation. You have to, figure out ways to work together to empower economically, yourself, so that you don't get, so you're not just a token hollow Indian. And I say that in the racist way that the Americans, that's the racist term, of course, that the Americans and Canadians will say it. Just be the token indigenous person in this game or this show. Oh, look at this black people we have in this cast, right? But it's all black exploitation or not really the black story. Oh, look at these Asian funny little convenience store owners. Haha, look at those little Asians, right? Running the little convenience store. What it's actually like to get your convenience store knocked over by some 16-year-old white kid who wanted cigarettes and was denied, and then it smashed up your store, right? It's like a joke in the Smashing Pumpkins video, 1979. It's just white rich kids jumping in a pool, getting out, or just white middle class kids getting out and then knocking over a bunch of an Asian convenience store, right? What is it? It's actually terrorizing. It's actually very racist. It's actually causes fear, harm, and also economic difficulty in a people who have, in the Chinese Exclusion Act, the White Australian Policy Act, and all these other gross racist, anti-Asian, systemic racism under critical race theory, which should be studied. Shout out to the millions of teachers who are supporting each other in solidarity to continue to teach true history, also known as critical race theory, part of it. But anyways, that story, this is what I think that's part of what the Kim's Convenience wanted to say. I want to say what I want. I want to have stories from our lives. I don't want to have a white person's comedic, not exactly the same as like Jim Crow, but I don't want to be just a little yellow minstrel doing a song and dance to entertain white Canadians and make them feel like they're not racist, even though they've written a fictional version of our story and they actually were racist to us by not listening to us at all when we have the life experiences, and they don't want to have any input from the Asians who have lived in Canada, worked in convenience stores, and they don't want any input. They want white people writing their experiences of Asian convenience stores. And that's one thing that they said, and that's why, it's like you need to have, because when Canadians have the money, they're never going to liberate indigenous people. Canadians treat their indigenous people, here, you want a grant? Here, jump through the hoop and don't make anything too radical. Oh, you want some money from this government fund for reconciliation to fund the indigenous representation? Yeah, you jump through this fucking hoop. They will never, the same way they do it to Hawaiians, the same way they drip feed money into the one corrupt African a leader in the country so that Western countries can continue come in and bomb and extract all the resources. They drip feed you a little bit of money give you a little bit just for a handful of people to make enough money to survive in the shithole racist, colonialist, imperialist, capitalist country or external colony, and then they continue to pillage. And so cinematically, that's what that is. It's cinematic colonialism. It's like, yeah, you can be Asian on screen, but you're gonna do exactly what we want you to do. You're gonna be the little Asian stereotype that we're gonna laugh at. Not your story, not a story that tells the truth about Canada, which is super anti-Asian racist, or the United States, which is super anti-Asian racist. Never wasn't. Chinatowns are survival mechanisms for mass lynchings and the threat of instant death. A Chinaman's chance meant anyone who is of Asian descent could be murdered at any time by a white person with zero legal repercussions. That's why Chinatowns exist. Chinatowns are trying to cling on to dear life from constant violent, verbal, racist, and economic, financial, police, and murder threat. That's what a Chinatown is. But we don't talk about that because, well, we don't, the West don't talk about things that are inconvenient for them until they're forced to. But anyways, it's really like, that's the difference between representation. So anyway, so going back to Fast and Furious. So to my mind, you can tell that Fast 9 is not a hollow representation sort of movie where, we're just gonna have a black guy, we're gonna have a black British girl, we're gonna have another black guy, we're gonna have a Latina girl, let's have we're gonna have a white lady, Asian dude, Italian guy, ambiguous, kind of all of the things together, Vin Diesel guy with a bald head, bald representation. It's not just like white, rich, capitalist, military, industrial complex and Wall Street executives coming together to do kind of like a get out of like kind of John Malkovich themselves, in being John Malkovich sense, where a bunch of rich people basically go into another person's mind and then become that famous celebrity. It's not about a bunch of undead body stealing liches going into black and brown people, making a movie that justifies their continued existence internationally under white supremacist capitalism and imperialism, and then sells that movie for billions of dollars and keeps the handful of actors of people of color actors within their little plantation confines, while the masses of black and brown people suffer and the working classes suffer and people's non-wealth peoples and non-white people suffer around the world. It's a show in which the people of color and the working class peoples, not always people necessarily working class, but people of color, people who like have the experiences at least within the working class and center the working class are controlling the shots, right? It's really a trick because it's really difficult to do that in a movie which costs money in a system that's still capitalistic. It's really a kind of actual hacking of the system. Like Vin Diesel is a much better hacker than any other hacker that I know in that sense, right? Hacking the system of how to get movies made movies that are made by white supremacy, imperialism and money, and how to make movies in that system that are about the opposite is a very difficult trick, Part of it is just you gotta make really entertaining popcorn movies that you get a lot of butts in seats, and then you can end up, and then you really you outplay the military, you outplay the Mike Pompeos and the Bidens, you outplay the Raytheon CEO and the Wall Street CEO and the Disney CEO who are gonna come in and be like, we want all of our and you kind of have to you have to really sell the movie as something that and try to outwit them in a lot of ways, right? Because if you come out and said, I'm gonna make a movie about international communism, why America's military and the police suck, they're gonna be, the U.S. money, they're not gonna be jumping. One of the tricks is don't make money that relies on U.S. funding. There's a reason why John Cena apologized to China. John Cena said, I love and respect China and the Chinese people. I'm very, very sorry for my mistake. When he accidentally called Taiwan a country, and because of the one China policy, because this is known in the world. It has been agreed upon for decades and decades of diplomacy between the United States and China. It's part of the bedrock of a very important deal, which could start wars itself, nuclear wars. Let's not pretend like we're not playing with this. But it's something that American spoiled rich prick gold diapered babies and emerald diapered babies like Elon Musk and Mike Pompeo and Mr. Biden like to fuck around with because they're clowns. But there's a reason why John Cena, when he accidentally said this, he apologized directly to China. There's a reason why Vin Diesel, John Cena, there was an international I don't know if I could play because I might get in trouble for it, but there was an international they said thank you. Vin Diesel personally thanked China. Thank you world, but Vin Diesel starts, he said thank you China, they said thank you Central South America, thank you Africa, thank you all of Asia. Vin Diesel personally thanked China for making Fast 9 the top grossing movie, the top movie in the world outside of Chinese movies, right? Because Vin knows, but I think it's not, I think partially it's because, yeah, this is where you got to go. But also it's like, if we want to make movies, like, you know, I had a whole stream just about the Iron Mask, right? If you want to make movies that are even attempting to be honest about reality and the world in the highest level, you have to go outside of the United States, because the United States ruling class does not want to make movies about how it's the single world leader in climate destruction, in carbon emission, in perpetration of global genocides, global war and death, destruction, the number one defender of global capitalism by the United States military, by the international SWIFT, world reserve currency of the US dollar, by its international hegemony, right? You have to leave the United States and go international to make a film that, not even just a left film, just a film that's honest, but if you want to make a film that, you know, speaks back to the truth of peoples of color experience, international experiences, the working class experiences, that doesn't center police in the military, in the again, what's important is not necessarily what's in the story. What's important is what is normalized in the background, right? However entertaining or not entertaining Fast 2 was, it glorifies the police, it demonizes South and Central Americans in general, like most American films and TV shows do. So you got to leave you have to seek assistance in the way that most actual progress that has ever been made in the United States has been with international solidarity. It's even the winning of civil rights, however little that they made, even international progress for working class, balance between the wealth and the capitalist owners and the working classes. Much of this was made with international pressure, right? Because much of the rest of the world is not as fucked up as the United States, right? Now, there's other parts of the world that are also have problems, but the United States in particular is like the reigning champion of the world's most evil systems. You know, it is the Death Star, you know, and now Americans don't know that. That's why Americans are some of the most disinformed, diseducated, ascientific people. That's why half of them won't take a goddamn vaccine. Because in order to maintain such a structure of believing you're the greatest, nicest, goodest, most moral country, Christian country, we're so good, and then also being the most evil, it means constant cognitive dissonance, constant disinformation, constant Western illusory Christian historiography. It's been that way not just in the United States, but throughout all of the Europeans' barbarisms and their fictional goodness under Christian morality. And then a handful of people call it out, and then they get sent into exile and put into the tower, like Mr. Voltaire. But anyways, and a bunch of other people who said the corrupt Pope, the corrupt British King, the corrupt French Dauphin. But anyways, so that's another important why international, right? Why international, right? Why Chinese, right? Because they hold, you know, and again, I bring this up often. They are the greatest success story. Anyone who pretends to call themselves left, socialist, anarchist, communist, Marxist, Leninist, whatever, if you do not have, you cannot even attempt to be, you are a liar. If you do not acknowledge the 850 million people lifted out of extreme poverty without colonial extraction, with the greatest success in terms of benefiting hundreds of millions of people, to build Shaokan Shahui, which is Chinese for moderate, the little or the moderate, the small, Shao means like small, slight, young. Kang, prosperity. Society. In building that great society and against imperialism for the greatest number of people on earth. Nothing in the West even comes close. And all of whatever middle class that is barely even existent in much of the Western world was built on the backs of billions of people's suffering, exploitation. Billions of people had to be pushed down to get a few white people to go up just this much, right? The entire Western world, all of Europe and the settler colonies are abject failures in that sense. It is the Chinese success story is the single greatest success story in terms of what the left pretends, or if the left really believes what it's saying, it must be honest about China, or it is not dialectical, it is not a comrade, and it is doing the job of its empire. Whatever criticisms you have, you must start with acknowledging this. And so that's a big reason, and Vin knows this because Vin is an internationalist. He knows their success. That's why he was out there and he said, thank you, China, first. And then thank you also, Latin America. Thank you all. The Chinese, by far, pushed this through the roof. Again, Fast and Furious 9. Let's see. Box Office World 2021. Number 1, Hi Mom. Chinese film about the success of the Chinese people alleviating 850 million people from poverty, bringing a country with no threats of fascism, with people with access to healthcare, right? Dignified access. That's part of poverty alleviation. Their water systems being properly treated, their housing, people getting access to free housing and quality housing, right? With 200 times less COVID pandemic deaths, steaming ahead economy, and the long COVID that comes with it, even if you didn't die from it. They are the greatest success story in the history of the human species, among any possible rubric. Utilitarian, your bullshit Western fictional Umfala skepsis based so-called philosophical moral systems, deontology, virtue ethics, Marxist analysis, anarchist analysis, whatever you look at, the material conditions, even in terms of freedom. They say actually the Chinese enjoy more political freedom now than they ever had before, because they had to, many more things were limited because of other reactionary acts, control within the country. They have more freedom than Americans, I would argue. They have more freedom to not be killed by basic pandemics and the police. They have far less the police murder. They have no mass incarceration of people anywhere close to what America has. They don't have prison slavery, unlike America's continued lobbying of attacks. You are not a leftist. You are a racist, in fact, if you do not acknowledge this. That's what I will argue that as well. Because you are a Western exceptionalist. Even if you're not white, you could be brown, you could be black. If you're not acknowledging this, you are either deeply lied to by your Western illusory historiography, right? Or if you don't want to get out of that, you are just straight up being xenophobic, and also you are just wrong. And I say that as an Asian. I'm a Pacific Islander, but also I'm also Asian as well. Like Dominic Toretto on many things, but I am and I have cultural ties to. I born, lived, and worked in Chinatown with many Asians, including Vietnamese, Chinese, a variety of types. I'm personally my family heritage has Japanese, but I did Chinese line dance, participated in these systems, and Chinese and Hawaiian intermarried. So I say that as somebody who also is Asian. You are anti-Asian racist if you do not acknowledge this. Hi Mom is the #1 grossing film of 2021, and it is a film about that success. It is in part its deeper story is about the success for the last 40 years of actual social work, lifting people up, helping people out, and helping them survive rather than blowing people up, making them suffer, making billions of dollars, which is what American movies stand. The second grossing movie is Detective Chinatown, which is also a Chinese film. Number 3 is Fast 9. And then the rest of Hollywood is trailing behind because Hollywood is a failure. And America is a failure. Ethically, in terms of box office, economically, financially, morally, and soon militarily. And Godzilla versus Kong is they spend a lot of money on that, but it's not close. Part of the reason why Fast 9 is grossed that much, they opened it first in China, right? Fast and Furious earned 162 million internationally after its May 19th release. 135 million coming from China. So they said we're gonna have Asians in our film and they're gonna be positively represented, right? He's not a Chinese, but Han is Korean, North Korean, and I don't know if he's North Korean, but he's Korean. But there's only one Korea. It's America that's splitting it in half and then bombing hundreds of thousands of people and slaughtering and blowing everything up in North Korea. There was nothing left to bomb. So Han is Korean and is a representative of Asia, and there are lots of other peoples, right? You know what movies didn't do as well? The movies that have a bunch of white military industrial complex stands and billionaire philanthropist arms to the playboys. You know which the movies that didn't do that well? You know which movies aren't doing as well? Wonder Woman. You know Disney's Mulan not doing that well. You know why? Because Disney is a white capitalist company with mostly white people behind the scenes making a film with a bunch of hollow Asian representation. That's part of why the Chinese Mulan failed in China. Even though Disney spent a lot of effort to fit the Chinese market, the reason why Mulan failed in the Chinese market is due to the stereotype and misunderstanding of the traditional Chinese culture, makeup, costumes, and sceneries, and characteristics. So, Disney is a racist company, like most American capitalist giant mega corporations, backed by spoiled rich pricks, many of whom work for the U.S. military. That's a picture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and a Saudi Mohammed bin Salman, one of the Saudi royalty. Right, that back the U.S. military, imperialism, the oligarchy, oil, and its financial and political elites. And Disney failed because why? Because they did a Kim's convenience. They did hollow representation. They did a Get Out. White people, white people like in Jordan Peele's Get Out, where white people body snatch black people's bodies because blackness is in and cool now. While saying that they love black people because I voted for Obama twice. I've got all these black statues. My best friend is black. I love Jay-Z. I listen to lots of hip-hop music. And, my favorite movie is, Tyler Perry's, That's hollow, white, white-filled black bodies. That's Oreo movies, or that's Twinkie movies in this case. White people calling all the shots, making all the decisions, making a movie that's not about and doesn't center and doesn't really honestly depict the experiences of the ethnic minority or the ethnicity today you're ostensibly making the show about. And so this is why Mulan failed in China. Because it is a bunch of white people, again, like so many, The Last Samurai. I mean, they weren't aiming that at Asia. That's the difference, right? But there's lots of movies where they just white people making non-white people's cultures movies for them, right? And then saying, it's kind of people going, we're gonna do volunteerism, we're gonna help you out in Hawaii, but it's some rich white person running a private park talking about how we're gonna like replant the native plants here, but it's not even the right native plant, and no Hawaiian is actually benefiting from it. So that's we're gonna like make your Chinese movie. We love Chinese people. I'm a random white Disney billionaire who doesn't fucking care. And also my brother is starting war with China because he works for Lockheed Martin and is putting out Wuhan bioterror weapon articles and Uyghur genocide backed by Nazi lies from Adrian Zenz from German University and the any National Endowment for Democracy and State Department cutouts. Oh, I love you Chinese people. Here, have some military propaganda. Maybe the reason why you can't actually make a Chinese movie, Disney and the Hollywood and the US empire, is because you fucking don't care about the Chinese people. And you want to fucking make war with them and sell nuclear missiles and bombs and tomahawks and aircraft and tanks and aircraft carriers and sun weapon systems and fucking Oracle, data tracking systems and bioterror, actual biological anthrax crossed with Epsilon COVID variant weapons against the Chinese, like you did before The United States has already killed Chinese with an actual bioterror weapon. It's called bubonic plague, launched from an American aircraft, exploding and spreading actual diseases, and bubonic plague and cholera. So the proven actual bioterror weapon user is the United States. There's no evidence of anything that they're saying. So, but that's why you can't make a Chinese movie that benefits the Chinese market, is because America is a racist country, and the people that are its ruling class that make its Disney and most Hollywood movies are a bunch of racist imperialist warmongers that make shitty TV shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is about criminalizing leftists and anarchists and anybody who doesn't like borders and Black Lives Matter, so that they can come and justify violent police and military crackdowns on socialists and anarchists who are being targeted right now in the United States and in the West. So that's the difference. So and there was this particular article that I wanted to bring up also, and I'll try to get out of here sooner because I always try to cut these down a little shorter than I've been making them, but we're gonna try to do that with this one. Black Widow, Disney failure. Black Widow has come out. I know. Again, this is no shade at the particular actors. Whatever, Chris Pratt, Chris Pine, Chris Evans, all these white, fucking John Wayne jawed, cowboy ass looking Americans, Americans have inside of them. I guess I just threw shade at them. But whatever the actors in these movies think, even Anthony Mackie, because I criticize Marvel movies, Anthony Mackie's in a lot of them, right? Falcon, he's in Infinity War, he's in multiple Avengers, right? He's gonna be the next Captain America. Whatever Anthony Mackie, and again, I really like Altered Carbon, and some people don't like it. I liked Altered Carbon season 2, and I think other people didn't like it for, I would argue, racist reasons, basically, and sexist reasons. It was mostly written by women, also that one. But anyways, whatever Anthony Mackie, whatever all these other actors and actresses feel in their hearts, it's not shade at them. This is not even shade at the people who made the Marvel movies. This is not even shade at how good or not good Iron Man or Winter Soldier or Guardians. I know I've made this point before. These are very entertaining movies. What the politics is, the cinematics, the screenwriting, the jokes are very funny. Robert Downey is always funny. He's a funny guy. The movies are very entertaining. So that's separate. The quality of the filmmaking is really good for all the Avengers in the Marvel movies. I happen to think that what they are saying, what the political, social, economic meta story that they're telling, the background world that they're telling, the message that they implant is bad. But the filmmaking, the drama, the character, the acting, some of them are better than others, right? But again, that's important. I've been kind of going on that theme, that you have to separate that from, because film, like games, like books, are not simply entertainment. All things are politics. Everything is political. It'd be like saying what the Catholic Church says in its sermons, are separate from the Holy Roman Empire. This has never been true. It's like saying, well, the residential schools, well, that's just religion. That's separate. That's nothing political about, I don't know, Catholic priests abusing and torturing and then ultimately killing children, indigenous children. Well, that's just religion. That's not politics. That's just education. That's one of the lies of Western Christian historiography, as Voltaire pointed out. This is not. I use Voltaire because it's important to maintain the track historically through time. It's not the CIA didn't invent disinformation. This has been the way of Western barbarism for a long time, right? The CIA deploy it in more advanced ways, but it's not like the French Sun King didn't make up crap about how good he was while being totally evil and lied to the population about how Christianity was propagated. Some white guy just said Christianity spread across the world with no violent revolution and basically implying it was all peaceful, right? That's part of the elusive, but of course that's an abject lie. And it was one of the methods of one of the greatest violence against billions of people across the world in the history of the human species. Kind of like the Chinese are the greatest success story in the human species. The Europeans are the greatest failure and evil in the human species. Not the whiteness itself, the skin color, but the people and the ruling classes that have come out and dominated in their ways have been horrific. Just by the evidence. Anyways, back to Black Widow though. Black Widow's China delay rings alarm bells for Hollywood. The U.S. film industry is heaving a heavy sigh of relief that Black Widow is poised to become the highest-grossing domestic debut of the post-pandemic era, marking America's return to movie-going force. Again, just PSA: be careful, get vaccinated, don't go out to the movies. If you're going to be in close proximity, wear a mask, protect yourself, because I don't know if you know this, COVID-19 is spiking. COVID-19 is going up again. It is not over. Pandemic is not through. Look, I don't know if you can see this, but COVID-19 went down to 11,000 cases per day. Average. We just had 35,000 cases in one day. Okay, so be very careful as a preamble, as a corollary to what I'm about to say. So then just Silver Spook said everybody go movies. Well, just be careful. Okay. Holly and I we're all vaccinated, so that's we're and also we were wearing masks the whole time, didn't eat anything. The U.S. film industry is heaving a sigh of relief that Black Widow is poised to become the highest-grossing domestic film post-pandemic. The Scarlett Johansson star is projected to earn about $80 million in its North American opening weekend, beating out F9 last month. It will also premiere 46 overseas markets, bringing in an unexpected $50 million. China, however, isn't on the roster. I mean, just as an example, right? Just going back to what happened with Fast 9, right? Fast 9 earned $135 million alone in China. The vast majority, right? Over 3/4 of the revenue internationally from China. It is the biggest market. It is the biggest. It is producing, and it is the consuming of first and last resort. It is the new universe. Now, Xi is not declaring himself the Sun King, unlike Mr. Louis, right? That's a bunch of bogus anti-Asian, Western exceptionalist, capitalist, imperialist propaganda. But it is what is drawing the sales of films, the sales of cars, the sales of air travel, the sales of aircraft. This is why Boeing is freaking out. They have to sell planes, and they're losing because of because of their own failure, like the Surfside Hotel, to properly build their own overpriced Floridian condo real estate. They also built their planes so terribly until they couldn't sell the plane. They got beat out by Airbus, I think. So because they know that the Chinese are not only the greatest producer, they're the greatest market in the world. Because part of that is because of how they dealt with COVID. All of the errors and the failures of the colonial capitalist barbarians, the Western barbarians, is adding up, and then they're gonna be a sad footnote in history soon. As long as they don't do something really dumb, like, I don't know, shoot all their nukes off for some weird reason. So everybody who has access, make sure nobody ever ratchets any tensions up. We all have a responsibility to stop any tensions from being ratcheted up at all times, and to take all of the red buttons away from all of the spoiled rich kids who are gonna get mad when their toys are lost, and then they want to just shoot all the nukes from the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, whoever holds all the keys. We can't talk about who exactly, because that would be possibly illegal. Fast and Furious 9 are simply F9, but they earned the majority of their money from China. That's the point. So when you come back to Black Widow, they don't even have a Chinese release, right? They don't have a Chinese release. This is just from an economic standpoint, even if you are a capitalist business person, that is a failure. That is a terrible failure. This is part of the Chinese goal, the deeper, longer game. This is the Sun Yat-sen. This is the art of war. The more advanced and wiser civilizations, longer 7-generational thinking, because the Chinese are an indigenous people. They think deep in time, and they plan out 30, 50, you have 5, 10, 30-year plans. America can't make a plan for the next quarter. All of its CEOs are too busy cutting out all of the copper wire from the planes, selling that on the increasing precious metals market, and then letting the planes crash while raking in collateralized dead United Airlines passenger obligations on Wall Street, raking in all the money from the exploding electrical infrastructure, despite knowing that infrastructure is required to ever have a successful country. So China can do that because China is a civilization, and America and the West has never had anything but barbarism, feudalism, capitalism, slavery that are all still in existence, and they all interlock, and it's all terrible, and it's a handful of spoiled rich pricks ruling everything. Sun kings, slave masters in American South, or emerald kings under Elon Musk and Mr. Gates and Mr. Bloomberg and Mr. Walton, unaccountable to their workers in their tyrannical corporations that have no democracy, and their fake democracies that are plutocracies with voting characteristics, voting wallpaper. However, in China, they have a functioning society, and Scarlett Johansson starred in this film. Anyway, so they should have opened it in China, but they, even under their own precepts, they are a failure. They can't open the film in China. Part of the reason why they can't open it in China is because Disney is closely tied to the US military, and they're super racist and white and rich, and they're all full of, they're liberal. A lot of Disney's, more of them are liberal, but the liberals have been doing, under the Clinton era where Trump was kind of not as closely tied to the military, putting a, can somebody chase the chicken? Putting a wedge between the Republicans and the military in some respects, because Trump was less hawkish than Clinton on the Syria no-fly zone, on increasing budgets, and Trump was actually not for good reasons, as I brought up before. Trump, for racist, eco-fascist reasons, was prioritizing the white Americans over international profit from military profiteering, right? For his own personal benefit, not because Trump cares a fuck about brown people or anyone around anyone else in the world at all. But anyway, so what the result of that is that part of the knock-on effect of that is Disney, which is closely tied to the more Democrat liberal end of the Democrats who are closely tied to all of Hollywood, are very anti-China, even more than Trump. Biden was harder on China, actually. He less overtly like saying racist things because he doesn't run to the white. He's not running to, you know, white people hanging on to the currency of their fair-skinnedness in America's racialized capitalism. But Democrats are running to the, they are still closely tied to anti-China because of their ties to the U.S. military, which needs threat inflation in China so it can sell all of its bombs and its missiles, right? And that is impacting its ability, I believe. I don't have the receipts on all of that, but I would argue that the reason why they haven't opened in China is because they haven't made a film that really respects China, socialism, communism. Let's be clear. The Chinese have a Communist Party of China. You know, the CPC celebrated its 100th anniversary. And they are the most successful. There are more members. There are over, it's like almost 10% of China is a member of the CPC. So when you insult the CPC, you're insulting working class Chinese. There are more working class farmers, rice paddy workers, cooperative, Uyghur restaurant runners, solar powered, solar power farm running, and also goat herding Hui peoples that are also members of the CPC, not just rich and not just the powerful. America doesn't have any political parties. America only has neo-feudal fucking courts that, and not like there's no law in America. And I'm talking about the Judge Judy court. I'm talking about like they have the palace at Versailles called the top most expensive 1,000 apartment condos and luxury penthouses in New York, San Francisco, and DC. America doesn't have a political party. It's a joke. China has a political party, however, of if you add up every socialist, communist, leftist, Marxist, Leninist, Trotskyist, Posadist, fully automated luxury space spaghetti monsterist, pick your flavor of leftism, right? Even the fake ones in the West. If you add up every leftist in the Canadian Communist Party, the Socialist Parties of Europe, the Social Democrat Party, you add up every left in every party, it doesn't even come close to the total number of members of the Communist Party of China. It is the world's left. It's not even close. Not to say that there's no leftism or the right, but in terms of actual party membership. So when you insult that, you're actually insulting the Chinese working class, and you're a racist, and you're also not dialectical, and you're ahistorical, and you're wrong. But anyways, and I say that as an Asian, the picture for Black Widow is far from rosy in the world's largest film market. So that's part of why they are a failure. Is because America's Western illusory historiography, including its cinematic his cinematic illusory Western historiography. This is called white imperialist bullshit historiography. This is not the world. Captain America is not saving the world. That's a lie. It's a cinematic, Marvel cinematic lie verse. Not a universe, it's a lie verse full of bullshit. Imagine millions of billions of tons of fecal matter spread out across the universe with, faster than light travel made of piss and urine, and like the rainbow. Think of golden showers instead of the rainbow bridge, right? Going from Earth to Thor's homeworld, right? That's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a universe of hammers made of shit. It's a universe made out of shields made out of Vibra shit. It's a billionaire philanthropist bullshit playboy who doesn't save anyone. Elon Musk isn't saving anyone. Are you kidding me? He wouldn't sacrifice 5 seconds for his own wife while she's giving birth, to not be a goddamn MRA going his own way, let alone give his life to save the world. This is the story. Remember, that's the story of the Avengers. Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Iron Man, sacrifices his life, right? He flies up in, I forget which movie, flies up as the invasion of space lizards and monsters and the evil hordes of the East. And this is the Western historiography that's encoded in much of these Marvel movies. All of these hordes of dragons and space monsters and all these dark peoples, right, coming out with a person who wants to cut the population in half. I don't know, like the Chinese who had a one-child policy. That's what Thanos is, right? It's space communism, and it has to be stopped by America space capitalism. It's called Iron Man. This is illusory 20th century American capitalist imperialist cinematic historiography. It's Marvel cinematic bullshit verse. That's what it is. Elon Musk would not fly into a black hole, come out the other side, and get himself killed. It's implied that he died at the end, like some kind of Jesus Christ. Elon Musk thinks of himself as a techno king, literally, and I brought this up, there's receipts for that. He declared himself the techno king with the SEC under United States government financial regulators. He's not a king. That's fine. That confirms neo-feudalism. So it's feudalism, he's a king, unelected royalty, which he is. He's not elected. And he's also a capitalist, incredibly wealthy multi-billionaire businessman who isn't worth 2 cents because he doesn't know that there wouldn't be 0 COVID-19 cases in the United States in April 2020. He's worthless. He's not worth less, but he's worth at best the average wage of a janitor or an Amazon fulfillment center worker. That's what Elon Musk is worth. He's not worth $200 billion. But anyway, so Robert Downey saves the universe multiple times. That is a lie. That's the deep lie of the meta story of that entire universe. One of them. That's just one of them. That's the illusory Western imperialist Christian historiography of the 21st century. It's the entirety of Hollywood, but in particular this franchise, and in particular Marvel movies. And it's not a mistake that Disney and Marvel and the US military are very closely intertwined. That is not by coincidence. It is not a coincidence that the highest paid actor, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the CEO of Disney, and a billionaire Saudi feudal king, or prince in this case, Mohammed bin Salman, were in a picture together. This is not a coincidence. And it is not a coincidence as well that Disney cannot get the Chinese right, because the Chinese are the opposite of that. The Chinese, as Voltaire, and I know I bring this quote up a lot, but it's important. As Voltaire said, China is the wisest nation, which has shown what a natural religion, a non-monotheistic imperialist religion, can do. China, the wisest nation, is a 4,000-year-old civilization, and the antidote to the illusions of Western Christian historiography, which China offers the best constitution, essai sur le moi, which does not rest on the merit of the Mandarins, which this commoner Arouet, Voltaire's real name, who is an admirer of Louis XIV, opposes to birth. That's Voltaire's words, right? And so China has always stood, not just China, but China, indigenous peoples around the world have always stood as a counter to this succession of feudal slavery, capitalist, and through all of that colonial barbarisms under Western Christian historiography built on poisonous lies, right? Such as the lie that the indigenous people were not civilized, when Hawaiians actually had you had electricity before the White House in our capital. We had universal health care before anyone in Europe. We had greater economic development. We had trains. We had modern advanced buildings that didn't collapse, unlike your Shoreside Hotel. We had social equality, racial equality, full citizen Chinese and African citizens who didn't have to convert to Hawaiian. They could practice whatever faith they wanted. Unlike what the West did to indigenous peoples, right? Slaughter indigenous peoples if they didn't convert, or be beaten and have the children be beaten and abused and had it forced into them in Canadian residential schools, but not just in Africa, in Asia, Latin America, Catholic priests, Protestant priests, Catholics in Spanish, in South America, in Brazil, everywhere, you name it, right? And that is one of the deepest and longest lies. That civilization came out of Europe. It never did. Civilization was in China. Civilization was in Turtle Island. Civilization was in Hawaii. Civilization was all around the world. Civilization was in Africa. The Europeans destroyed it. The Europeans were the barbarians the whole time, right? It's like, what, you mean Europe was the barbarians the whole time? Always has been. Bang, right? That's the CIA, the US military, and everyone in the world. Oh, you figured it out? Well, time to go into a deep, dark prison. Umia al-Jabal, time to go into a deep, dark prison. Person trying to get it out, Assange journalists in the West, time to go into a deep, dark prison because you're getting the truth out. And so Disney and America, Disney as the emissary of American cinematic imperialism cannot cater to the Chinese market. Because, and this is the game of Go that the Chinese are successfully winning. The capitalist world cannot continue to exist without doing business because they are losing their hegemony. They're losing their economic control. They must do business with China. You cannot have the semiconductors that they need have to come out of China, and to make their microwaves, their planes, their Lockheed Martin missiles, their Hellfire missiles on their drones, their computers, their GM trucks, their Ford trucks, everything. They cannot make movies without catering to the Chinese audience. And so what is happening to Disney is they will fail to make successful movies, which Disney deserves to do. Fuck Disney. Fuck all your giant capitalist corporations, and fuck your military ties, and fuck all your terrible racist imperialist narratives, and fuck all your Avengers, and fuck Captain America, and fuck Iron Man, and fuck all of that shit. Because that's all garbage. It always was. Except this time you can't blow away the person telling the truth, because now China has the hypersonic missiles and the one submarine that can go under the water for years at a time, running silently on diesel, launch one warhead and take out 15 to 20 American cities, including Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Seattle. Every billionaire's favorite city will be gone in the beginning of a nuclear war with China. America is planning a nuclear war with China, but China have outplayed the United States. Now, hopefully, there's nobody that's fucking bonkers enough to try something really ridiculous. This is part of why John Cena apologized for the Taiwan comment. Is because John and Vin, and Vin probably, John, we gotta, like, don't fuck with this, right? I don't know what the operative told you in your ear, but apologize for saying that Taiwan is a separate country from China, because that is a major problem. Not just for our box office success that beat out every Disney movie, and not just because it's racist and wrong, but because it is terribly destructive. So, Fast 9 again grossed 135 million, and Black Widow. I don't want to. Again, this is no shade. When I say fuck Captain America, I'm not throwing shade at Anthony Mackie. Again, I like him in other movies. I appreciate things that he said about Hollywood. I'm just saying, like, fuck that bullshit. Fuck the meta story of what they're saying. I actually think that Falcon and Winter Soldier is pretty entertaining. I have no interest in benefiting. I have a whole thread. There's a Japanese, I believe, Japanese person who is often retweeting this one thread, so I'm gonna go back to it. About Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm gonna briefly because this is kind of relevant. Falcon and Winter Soldier, while it is entertaining, to me was black faces in high superhero places, working for the U.S. military, which is what Falcon does, rescuing cops and rich assholes, kind of like, I don't know, spoiled rich pricks. The Falcon rescues spoiled rich pricks, uncritically, unironically. Vin and his family fight and beat the shit out of and try to not get killed by spoiled rich pricks. That's the major difference. Falcon works for the U.S. military, rescues cops and rich assholes and Western politicians from the leftist young people with no housing and no healthcare, whose planet's on fire. The Flag Smashers don't make no mistake about it. The Flag Smashers, the antagonist, the villain in Falcon and Winter Soldier is socialist. They are Black Lives Matter activists. They are people who are like the screw borders. They're the people who are trying to get people universal healthcare. The U.S. military and police have, in their training documents, targeted specifically socialists and anarchists as part of planetary enemies of the United States, internally and outside. Don't kid yourself. It's not a mistake that that's coming through Disney, the empire's mouthpiece for the silver screen. Western politicians from the U.S. young people with no housing, no healthcare, whose planet's on fire. We did this liberal bullshit with Obama already. The Hollywood propaganda is as tone deaf as Nancy Pelosi's. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice. Thanks, Isaiah Bradley. This is a black man who served in the Korean War, which was a horrific war crime and genocide of millions of Koreans, bombed their entire country into the Stone Age, nothing left to bomb, disgusting, and continues to this day in their artificial separation of families, brothers from sisters in Korea, from south to north. Now, $300 million for police budgets to murder black people. Thanks a lot, Isaiah, for fighting in. That part of the propaganda of this movie is rehabilitation of the Korean War. And America did such great things. It just kind of like focusing on the suffering of one black guy and racism in America, and not the fact that America did horrible crimes in the Korean War. But anyways, now $300 million for police budgets to murder black people, more imperialist wars, creating flag smasher refugees. This is what the Democrats are backing and Nancy Pelosi. The worst imperial propaganda was in Falcon and Winter Soldier is where the U.S. military and the Falcon are fretting about infringing on the Libyan border, which this buries the fact that the U.S. and NATO forced their way into Libya and bombed it into oblivion, created slave markets there. When Bolivia had, like Hawaii, was a non-white country, had universal healthcare, universal education, and universal free college education, had the African Monetary Fund to fund not hollow, in the same way hollow representation on the cinematic screen, hollow aid, which is what the West has given to Africa, America, Europe, you name it. It looks good for the liberals and the bleeding hearts in their white countries, while actively harming and allowing continued pillaging and death and destruction in the African countries. You build one school, take a picture, and then blow up 999, right? And Libya was a symbol and a real concrete economic, actual empowered method to bring Africa out of poverty, bring Africa to prosperity for the masses. And America, Democrat Hillary Clinton, forced illegally, war of aggression, forced their way into Libya with France, bombed it into oblivion, created slave markets there. So that is the mega lie. That I can see the Pentagon writing that into the script. Oh, look, we bombed Libya. Let's do some Western illusory historiography and pretend like we saved Libya in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Let's rehabilitate U.S. military's attachment, because Falcon is a member of the military. The military is all there chasing down criminals, right? So that is one of the deep meta lies of propaganda, in one of the worst ones to my mind, in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. The only honest scene in the show is where Captain America throws a tantrum and chops someone's head off with a shield. What the U.S. does to the world. But then he gets a wrist slap, is rehired by Western intelligence. He was fed up, and this is what he did. Right? Remember this from the murderer of Asians in the massage parlor? The Captain America who chops a leftist young person's head off in public is rewarded with a even better job in the intelligence community of the United States, which is never shown to be doing wrong. It's always shown to be defending the world from evil, not overthrowing African country X, not bombing Libya, right? Not undoing South Asian country. The Asians are sure to be backwards and dirty and diseased and full of criminals. When they go to the Asian city, anti-Asian racists. Cyberpunk was born in anti-Asian racism, much of it. Some of it was saying a lot of important things. Much of it is anti-Asian racist in a time of deep yellow peril against Japan in the 80s. And there's cyberpunk-ish scenes in it where it's all red, yellow, blue, lots of Asians and people, and then they're all criminals. And everything is all ass fucking backwards to my mind. The Americans are good. Americans and all the people who want to work with America are good. Their own leftist children are evil and have to be corrected by chopping their heads off and murdering. Captain America, Winter Soldier, they murder a whole lot of young leftists from around the world. Let's be really clear. That is what they are preparing the United States and its military and its police and Europe's military and police and all of its population for is the blasting. It's clear. Antifa are terrorists, socialists are terrorists, anarchists are terrorists, and anyone. This is still the line. There are some voices of well maybe we should listen, but the ones that are doubling down on America and its military, they are getting behind this. Okay, so you gotta be really the movies and the news. What starts out as those who would tell you. Another Voltaire quote: "Those who would tell you one of the only good ones, not the ones that they don't put the good Chinese, the one about China, in quotes.com because Western world is full of lies, and that includes their quotes from their old dead white famous intellectuals, right? They don't put the good one about China that I just read. They only put the ones like, oh, give me freedom or give me death. The tree of liberty is watered with the blood of tyrants, and all this shit that America and the West never did. But another good one is those who would tell you absurdities are preparing you for atrocities. That is an absurdity. But they're preparing you for an internal atrocity. Well, they've really been committing it, but they weren't going to escalate it now, because America can't survive if it doesn't deal with its internal socialism. You know, if it doesn't deal with its internal most of the 35 and under are going more. They dislike socialism, they dislike capitalism, and they like socialism. America will not be able to continue to exist if that continues, because America is as Ayn Rand correctly pointed out, fundamental to America is capitalism, the individual industrialists, and private property as central and sacrosanct. And that can't continue. And white supremacy as well. But that can't continue. If the youth get critical race theory, and not just that, but learn about what socialism means, undo their Western illusory historiography, they will, with true history, America will have to train its military and its police to demonize its own children even more directly. And that's what Falcon and Winter Soldier does. Yeah, go kill some marginalized people in or outside the US. That's what we want. If you get caught on camera and killing goes viral, just lay low for a bit and we'll rehire you in another department. So Captain America does a US police department. Just lay low, we'll rehire you somewhere else. Right? Let's be clear. Chauvin would be running free, keeping his $1 million pension, and it's unclear that he's going to spend all the time in, how much he's going to actually spend. He hasn't spent it in prison yet. Until the sentence is served, they can always undo it. Backdoor deals, extradite him, he disappears. But nothing would have happened to Derek Chauvin if it wasn't for 31 million people. The greatest uprising in the history of the United States. Basically, rioting and burning entire, cities, just interrupting everything and causing havoc for months and months and months and months and months. Just for one cop. That's one cop. Let's be clear. That's not justice. That's one cop. That's that's hollow representation. You want real justice? How about you disband the entire U.S. police force? But the thing is, America. This is the deeper thing. Is that hopefully Americans will sooner get this than later. It's not just the police. The police are the fist of the empire, but there's the whole empire behind it. The whole body, the head, the arms, the legs, the heart. You chop the fist off. America's gonna put a metal fist on. It's called robot police and DARPA dogs, and then you're fucking screwed. But now, of course, you can continue to call. It is important to continue to call for all these things, because it is what should happen, right? But more deeper than that is the entire American legitimacy, its ruling class, its capitalist class, you know, its entire capitalist structure. It preempts the possibility of any kind of law enforcement that is fair, of whatever version of maintaining cohesion, restorative justice that you visualize. That is all preempted. You know, even if you remove all police, they can just have private, you know, rainbow socialists that have guns and happen to mass social work the black and brown communities disproportionately in facilities where they can't leave for long periods of time. You know. So this is not this part of that. So anyway, so getting back to this story, if you read this far, U.S. empire stopped illegally occupying Hawaii. Anyway, so we have to crush our leftist millennial and Gen Z children before they come for us, destroying their future. So you know, this is the real deeper story of all of the Marvel films, and back to Black Widow. However, I have not seen the movie. However good or not good that is, it will also premiere in 46 overseas markets. Scarlett Johansson's star is. China is not on the roster. The picture for Black Widow is far from rosy in the world's largest film market, where politics are proving once again to trump profit. I would argue, which politics? Are you saying the Chinese are too what? The Chinese are too something for you? What, kind of like how you accuse the Chinese of bioterror weapons, despite you killing thousands of Chinese people with actual bioterror weapons, like cholera and plague bombs in the Korean War? Is that? No, but this is you know, anyway. I don't know. I don't know what they mean, but where politics are proving once again to trump profit. Is it, I would argue, Disney and the U.S. empire's politics are trumping the profit because they are warmongering and trying to crush China, and China don't want to have your shitty movies made by your warmongers. And I don't know, I haven't seen it, so I don't know what exactly is in Black Widow, but I'm guessing, based on all the other Marvel movies, it's going to be more of this either apolitical, which is maintaining Western imperial hegemony, or it's going to be actively attacking communism. Because there's a character that's kind of, you know, it's attacking that, or not, or misrepresenting the truth in regards to China, or it's just something. Who knows, right? I know that there is there's a Russian Soviet character. There are multiple. I think it goes back to the Soviet Union, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, I'm just gonna guess that maybe it's the way that they depict. Not that China and Soviet Union haven't had problems, but maybe the way that they depict communism in general and socialism as not very good, and that could be a problem. Who knows? Or maybe they have racist depictions of Chinese people. I don't know. But Disney has a fucking horrible track record, probably because most of the people who write, edit, and gatekeep all of Disney's fucking movies are white. As Anthony Mackie said, I'm not Anthony Mackie. That's not even me. I don't know. I'm not in the production studio. That's Anthony Mackie. The picture for Black Widow is far from rosy in the world's largest film market, where politics are proving once again to trump profits on the Chinese shores. Although China's censorship authorities, America has censorship. I don't know if you noticed this. Donald Trump is suing America for censorship. So don't be, you know. Now we're playing. Let's throw the censorship. They do block certain films, and you know, you can call it censorship, but I mean, America also has, let's be clear, they censor indigenous people, like when they're asking for, please stop shoving your illegal coastal gassing pipeline through indigenous Wet'suwet'en territory, right, for multi-billion dollars worth of fossil fuel profit. And America deleted their accounts, like Una Stoltenkamp, right, and like Lottie Blix's stream, and other people who are streaming about this important topic when the Canadian Canadian RCMP were pointing sniper rifles and shoving their way onto indigenous land, pointing sniper rifles at indigenous peoples and threatening them with death, right? And we know how the Canadians think about an indigenous death, right? Their children, which is, it's just an insect. That's what they think. Anyway, so China, and I'm sorry. So anyway, that's just irritation I have with this phrasing. And also I've had my entire streams just like gone. And let's be clear, the United States corporations are its government. It's a plutocracy, right? Like the capitalist ruling class runs the government. 99% of all lobbying, all of the determination of policy comes through whatever gets the most money for it. Okay. I mean, even Americans know that. Everybody knows that. So when a giant mega corporation does a thing, that's the American government doing a thing. And so America is full of censorship. They're trying to paint this as the Chinese censorship is why the film did bad. I don't think that's what it is. I think you're just being racist and you're a bunch of fucking liars. For release back in March, Marvel has yet to offer any indication of a release date for the key territory. I'm not saying that they don't. You know, you ever ban someone for saying the N-word in your Discord? You're doing censorship. I mean, some people need to be, you know, escorted for acting in bad faith. You know, and so. You know, so I mean, I don't know. That's not a thing. Even the MAGA platform Getter, made by right-wing conservative, racist, alt-right Trump supporters, right? Getter, they censored people because people are posting like Sonic furry, like furry sexy stuff, like sexy furry Sonic stuff, and they knew that they had to censor just to make a point. Like, you want anybody to say and do anything whenever? Well, let us say and do this, right? And even the free speech people had to ban those. They banned those people. So this is full of shit. No, it's just when people are saying something that is in bad faith, antagonistically, to with a motive, with a malicious motive to destroy you, you don't let them say that in your space. You know, freedom of speech is part of this whole lie of absolutist freedom of speech is part of the illusory Western barbarous Christian historiography. They never followed anyway. They always ban speech. They ban whatever is inconvenient for them. And if they don't ban it, what they do is just kill and threaten. Well, we didn't ban anyone from, you know, resisting, saying that fuck America. We just bombed them all in Iraq. So we didn't harm it's not like Derek Chauvin harmed George Floyd's freedom of speech. He just restricted his windpipe for 8 minutes and 46 seconds till he died. How do you have freedom of speech when you can't talk because there's a cop's knee on your neck illegally? You know? Anyways, a belated China release could spell trouble. Disney Plus, thanks to Asian time zone, a belated Chinese release could spell trouble. Disney does not operate in China. When the streaming service released the film online for $30 fee in other territories Friday, it unleashed an easily pirated high definition version. Okay, well now I'm just going. Well, it's the cheap Chinese. It's the Chinese pirates are doing all of this. Like, I'm not saying that never happens, but. Hey, look. Fast and Furious, the bulk of its revenue came from China. They have a middle class. I would wager the Chinese have more money to spend on movies than Americans. You know, I don't wager that. That's literally the case. That's why the top box office grosses are freaking Hi Mom, a Chinese film, and then Detective Chinatown, right? And then Godzilla is that's the Hollywood bullshit that's lagging behind fucking Fast 9 because they know where the future is, right? So just blaming the Chinese pirate. This is another anti-Asian racism to back the military or the capitalist Wall Street that fucking I don't know who the fuck you work for, Variety, but it doesn't matter if you work for this echo chamber of illusory Western historiography. Okay, so yeah, bullshit artists. Don't blame them, you know. Don't fucking blame them for your shitty racist movie. Why don't you have the star of the movie come out and say something positive about China, like John Cena did and Vin Diesel did, right? Why don't you like not have rich white military profiteers writing your fucking script, Disney, right? Don't blame it on the Chinese, you know, falling back on the Chinese stealing all of our stuff trope. That's as old as British and French burning the Summer Palace, stealing all of the finest art and all of the greatest contents of every museum in Europe and every cathedral added together, as Victor Hugo aptly pointed out in his poem, could not equal what was in the Summer Palace of China, and then blame the Chinese for being a bunch of stealers, like you always do, blaming other people and attacking other people for the things that you're doing. Don't blame them for this fucking, your movie fucking either sucked or it's badly representing other people's besides rich white military stands. Or you just, for other political reasons, by political I mean the US military didn't want it to be released in China. Or who the fuck knows why why it went bad. You had racist business people trying to sell the movie in China, and then I don't know, maybe the Hollywood executive was coming in with his cigar and going, so how's the Wuhan flu going? And that pissed off the Chinese, cinematic negotiator, and they're like, what? And then after that, he said, so if you guys can stop committing genocide in Xinjiang, and if you stop, sending your COVID-19 bioterror weapons to America and stealing, X and Y and Z, maybe we'll let you open up Black Widow. But let's talk about your human rights violations. All right, who the fuck? In the echo chamber of America's business and military upper class, I wouldn't, and economic upper class, all they're reading is this fucking drivel. I pointed out last week that there was a story, I don't want to say where it is, there was a story that was released on a major science fiction magazine by a person who has Hugo and Nebula awards, who has 50 plus in mega publications from, all the greatest science fiction magazines. At NASFIC, legendary writer, wrote an incredibly racist story about Chinese and Asian coded aliens who slaughter Earthlings with bioterror, COVID-like viruses. And I was like, how is this even being published in this I'm not going to say which magazines, I'm not going to say what podcasts, I'm not going to say what writer, but it was somebody very famous, very well known. I looked at the litany of I look at his curriculum vitae. He's like, wow, Hugo, Nebula, wow, mega science fiction writer, publishing completely just racist. Now he doesn't say like the aliens are Chinese, but the way it's always couched is the aliens are Chinese. The American political and legal system is awesome and is fighting the Chinese. And there's some racist people in America, but it's mostly the aliens who are trying to kill us and who want to steal all of our resources and technology and take it back to their planet. Right? It's so thinly veiled anti-Asian, anti-China, war propaganda, just fucking imperialist lies in a major publication from a major science fiction author. So, my point, America and the West is so steeped in its anti-Chinese, even its most that person has a law degree, teaches, I think as a professor, and either has a law degree or works in law. I can't remember exactly, but it was somebody with a 8-year plus degree, make major representation in academia and in the science fiction and literary publishing community, publishing this disgusting story. And I was like, wow, the whole West is it is unhinged. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And it's because they're filled with this echo chamber. They're reading New York Times, they're reading Washington Post, they're just guzzling down all of this brain poison of Western media, and then they're just regurgitating it. Now it's an echo chamber because you can't write it. My point there was that I made it in the last Wednesday stream, was that you can't even publish a science fiction story that is relatable to modern current events, to even the highly educated. These are like STEM nerds. You got like English majors. You've got very highly paid rocket scientists at JPL who read science fiction, high-level programmers. These are very smart people in certain realms, but you can't even publish stories that they like to read without it being filled with completely worse, most terrible anti-Asian racism and nonsense and ultimately it's war propaganda. Because it really, the way the story is couched is that China is a real threat. COVID-19 is a bioterror weapon. It is being made and being manufactured by the Chinese. They are making new variants and they are dropping it into America, and the Chinese are still trying to kill us. That's the point of the story. That's the way that it's, because I'm waiting for the story to come back and go, okay, well maybe the aliens weren't that bad and it's the US actually created it. No. The story ends with, it's war and the aliens won this war. You guys suck. Basically what it ends with. It's like, and then the Americans do try to figure out how to weaponize it, but the lie is that the Americans try to figure out how to do bioterror weapons, biological weapons, right? Before the aliens, right? America already killed the Chinese and the Koreans with fucking biological weapons. They've been working on these things forever. The military, U.S. military and biotech research divisions have admitted they're working on bioweapons for a long time, right? And even Americans don't know what their own military. Well, that's part of the deal. It's like you have half the people that are actually working on the weapons. They have to all sign like NDAs and silence forms because they're the ones that are making the weapons that they're accusing the other places of making. It's the level the level of keeping all of your 25 different lies straight and your mountains of illusory myriad bullshit artistry and entire fictional narratives straight. you know, it can be very confusing. This is why America has so many writers and directors and filmmakers, is because all of America is a film. Like literally all the world's a stage, but literally everything is a fictional universe. It's called the American Cinematic Universe, where we're the good guys, we save everyone, and we're not making bioterror weapons trying to slaughter the rest of the world, you know? That's the best directors and screenwriters are the think tanks in DC and the military's propaganda writers and the news writers. That's the greatest writers and artists and cinematographers, right? These people filming all that bullshit. Journalists, right? They have to tell the most convincing fictional story. It's called American Western hegemonic propaganda. Anyways, on certain illegal sites powered by online gaming, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so variety finds scores of pirated videos, blah 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 blah. So it's online gaming and it's all illegal stuff, and it's all their fault, dude. There's like Game of Thrones is pirated how many times? There's lots of pirated copies of every fucking movie. When it doesn't matter. Thor, when the previous Fast come out, there's lots of people who were downloading all kinds of things and not paying for it in America and all over the world. And then it's the Chinese that are doing it, and they're stealing our movies, like they're stealing our technology, like they're stealing our missile technology, and they're stealing our 5G. They've invented 5G. America, you're just behind. You're a failure. Just give up. They didn't steal the space station. You made a deal with companies to share technology in return for production of fucking products. Don't be a little spoiled baby. You didn't steal it. And anyway. And like, people downloading stuff happens. People that have money pay for the things that are worth paying for, and and there might be more in particular areas, particularly when it was very expensive, right? People who don't have a lot of money, they tend to download more things than they pay for. But they don't have any fucking money. Maybe get the world some money so they can pay for your fucking movies, right? Stop hoarding all the money in your Western countries that have 10, 20 times more wealth per capita than the rest of the world for a long time. Now China, the thing is, this is why this argument doesn't work anymore, because now the Chinese have more money to consume now than many Americans. The Americans are the ones in poverty. You can make $100,000 a year as a United Airlines aircraft engineer, and you can still be living in a Mazda Tribute or in a Chevy Suburban in a Walmart parking lot, washing your hands and taking a bath in a public park bathroom, and then going to work in a Hawaiian Airlines or United Airlines in the Honolulu International Airport. I know this because I had a friend who made $100,000 a year and was still in poverty. So, I mean, I don't have to say that they were downloading everything, but Americans, the Chinese have more money. My point is, the Chinese have some money to spend now. A lot of them, they have they have twice the size of their middle class than the whole of America. So that's a bullshit argument. One of the major fan-generated subtitle websites. Okay, but anyway, so they're just talking about. Okay, so this is just a hit piece on China, trying to blame China for the failure of your Disney's racist, capitalist, shitty movie that doesn't take into account Asians. Right? That's what this is. That's what this looks like to me. Same piracy issue plagued Disney's 200 million Mulan. And again, the reason, Chinese, look, it says it right here. Disney's 200 million live action Mulan in China, tanking hopes that China's set retelling of a classic Chinese folktale with Asian cast will become a breakout hit. You have, again, Disney does not recognize its hollow representation. Disney does not represent, is not being honest, and either is unconscious or is dishonest about its lack of actual equity between the black, brown, and Asian people in the Disney Corporation, as Anthony Mackie has pointed out, right? As the Canadian white supremacist capitalist class that runs Canada and its film are not coming clean about their lack of equity and their actual support of the Asians in Kim's Convenience, which is why the Asians in Kim's Convenience say, I'm not going to work on this anymore, and I actually had a terrible time in many ways. I liked being able to work on it, but I'm very unhappy with the way that they disrespected us, didn't listen to our Asian voices, and made a white minstrel version of a lot of, in many ways, our Asian experience, right? And Disney's fail, but this is a Western media article playing defense for Disney, because that's what the Western media's job is. Blaming it on the Chinese. They're cheap. They're a bunch of thieving people, stealing our movies, pirating our films. They're racist. They're political. They're censorship. They're authoritarian. They're Eastern despots, right? They're yellow. They're the yellow peril. We are the great white hope, right? Oh, the peril of great white Disney, threatened by evil Xi Jinping and the communist dictatorship that killed 100 trillion people under Stalin, Marx, from inefficient business practices and communist vuvuzela, you know. And a drug lord that came from Castro went to China and stole the money from the theaters, you know, with his communism that should have gone to the Disney box office sales. And now the Disney CEO is sad Disney. Just have America's central bank print you another $1 billion. What are you crying about? You know, you have infinite free money. It's like my friend actually once described it as, in Hollywood, making movies, it's like toast. They have you can have $100 million. They have infinite money, right? They have this. It's like if you get a piece of bread from your Loves, your generic branded, your Safeway, or generic unbranded non-capitalist loaf of wheat, rye, or white bread, you put it in your toaster oven, you push it down, you wait 30 seconds, it pops up, and you drop your toast right on the ground, and you're like, oh man, I was gonna eat that toast, but now I can't eat it because I dropped it on the ground. Crap. You get another piece of bread, you put it in the toaster oven, you push it down, you wait 30 seconds, oh, there's your second toast, right? My friend said, like, when Hollywood makes movies, that's how they make movies. They have infinite money from the U.S. military-industrial complex and the U.S. Wall Street and the central banking, global weapon of mass financial destruction that is the U.S.-centered SWIFT system in the Federal Reserve of New York City, right? They don't give a shit. They have infinite money, right? They printed $6 trillion just for fun last year to give it to Elon Musk and Bezos to do whatever the fuck they want, right? Buy 10 more yachts, right? You know, make a Millennium Falcon out of emeralds and gold and put it inside of his Elon Musk backyard. You know, buy another 10 private firefighting teams as California burns to a crisp with fire nados and exploding electrical company bills and electrical companies because all their lines are not maintained. Elon, they have infinite money, Disney, right? And all of Hollywood. What are they crying about? And it's like, that's how they make the Hollywood movies. Now, but the problem is, it's really not a problem that they're not making money. What the real problem is people aren't watching their shitty fucking movies. And not the movies are shitty. Scarlett Johansson, the actors and actresses in Mulan, I'm sure they're fine. They're not watching their white supremacist, capitalist, and imperialist propaganda-infused films. And their executives and the producers of the Hollywood military-industrial complex entertainment arm are probably not being very diplomatic, let's put it nicely, with Disney. That's with China, I'm sorry. So hey, here, this is what you can do. Stop being a warmongering, racist filmmaker with fake liberal, I love my people of color. It's like going to a Hawaiian governor's inaugural brunch, it's like, oh, look at all this Filipino Hawaiian, and then after that they put the Hawaiians on the side and they say, okay, now the cops come and arrest half of them. Oh, any Hawaiian kids to arrest? The way Hollywood makes this film, which is all Democrat backed, is the way that they police the people of color in their Democrat cities. And I've talked about that at length. So what you can do is stop being fucking liberal, racist, imperialist, Wall Street descendants of the pillaging of China, their silk, their tea, and you owe $50 trillion worth of reparations. Standard & Poor, Astor, Delano Roosevelt's, Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, and all the greatest fortunes of America. I mean, the Chinese don't want that. What they would like you to do is just stop fucking misrepresenting them, stop lying about them, stop surrounding them with fucking military bases, and then asking them to screen on their cinematic theaters your shitty fucking movies while being racist. Just try to not do that. Can you just not do that? Just change your ways. Disney, Hollywood, the United States, just stop being shitty. Just stop. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, it's not that hard, but it's hard for fucking barbarians who all they want is this, right? Even the liberal ones who pretend like that's not what they want, but that's what they want. They're very good at the doublespeak. Republicans are not as good at the doublespeak. They just come out and say they're, oh yeah, fuck them black people. You know, there's a lot. There's a lot less mental gymnastics to do because you just come out and just like say N-word, and just be a racist all over the place. Just be a fucking racist all over the place, as you do as a Republican. But for Democrats, you got to do a lot of flipping and flopping, right? One day, one hour, you're hugging the Hawaiian. The next hour, you're arresting his brother. That's what they did in Kalihi. I was literally working for Democrats, and then they're arresting all my brothers and sisters with their cops. And they shake your hand, they give you a big hug, and then they stab you in the back. So anyway, but that's Hollywood. That's Disney. That's the Democrats. So death sentence for Black Widow in China. But anyway, it's 119. From a purely economic standpoint, delay of makes little sense. Again, from a purely economic point of view, China's delay of surefire commercial hit Black Widow makes little sense, particularly since the box office has been on the downswing since June when it hit a record monthly low. Again, why is it not open? Why is it not open? Why don't you fucking go out like Vin Diesel did, right? Go out like Vin Diesel fucking did and, you know, thank China, you know? Hey, China, can we get this movie released there? Hey, China. Hey, like, and if they're having a problem, maybe make a movie that has some fucking better representation of people of color and non-capitalist and doesn't fucking, you know, have some Asians in it that are more authentic, you know? Even Triple X had like Asian Chinese stars in it, you know? Fucking like, don't just have all your white military fucking bootlickers in your movie. Like, go get the fuck out of your American Western exceptionalist brain and get out there, you know? If you know, or don't make any money ever again and be not destroyed by China, but just have your cinematic head crushed on the Great Steel Wall of the Chinese 1.4 billion people and their consuming of movies. You're gonna have your fucking head smashed on the, they didn't smash anyone. That's a mistranslation by the New York Times, Washington Post, and the entire Western imperial complex. They don't want to come out and kill anyone, and they're not gonna crush anyone who stops them from succeeding. Anyone who tries to bully, to oppress, or to enslave China, this is Xi Jinping's actual words, will have their heads bloodied on a Great Steel Wall, right? All you gotta do is stop blooding your own fucking face economically on the steel wall of China by just trying to cooperate instead of trying to fight them. You know, this is Disney is smashing, it's Mickey Mouse's nose is getting all broken, it's smashed up, and little bits of cartilage are flying out all over the Great Steel Wall right now. And Vin is laughing to the bank. You know, Vin is like fucking like, you fucking clowns. I think this ultimately has always been Vin Diesel's long game. It's like, I'm gonna take a lesson from the Chinese and I'm gonna play international Go and work around these American clowns. And we're gonna figure out a way to do stories that don't empower the police, the military, and tell the truth about international imperialism while also being very entertaining. And then also we're gonna work with the Chinese and like apologize to them when we say the wrong thing about Taiwan and thank them for coming to the movies and fucking like tell stories that at least that deal with international imperialism and international colonialism. The Chinese are working very closely with the South and Central America and Africa right now, so don't kid yourself. They are learning more and more every day. Asians and Central South Americans are learning more and more every day. The days of the Monroe Doctrine, the days of Western imperialism and colonialism are numbered. And America cannot survive. It has survived on pillaging the Summer Palace of China and the Silk and the Tea. It has survived on pillaging black bodies on stolen indigenous land. It has continues to survive on international war and pillaging Africa's resources, pillaging oil in the Middle East. And when, again, that's how the success of the global left will happen, is the extension of the Great Wall of Steel out from China across the entire world to the Great Wall of South American Bolivian indigenous, millions of indigenous Bolivians, and with socialism building a Great Wall of Bolivian steel and lithium that you can't just fucking take. Germany, America, Elon Musk, right? A Great Wall of Steel around Africa and Namibia and Rwanda that France you can't just take. Macron, right? Big transnational Euro companies coming in, taking their oil, taking their metals, right? Libya. The Great Wall of African Steel is being built as we speak. Part of that is the Belt and Road is a Silk Road, but it's also a silk and a steel road. of economic solidarity and ultimately military, hopefully not minimally, but if it must needs be, but more importantly, economic solidarity, international solidarity. And there will be a great silk and steel wall around the global south and the global east, leaving out the 800 million white racist capitalist fucking assholes and a minority of them in the ruling classes. And that's what I think. That's what Vin knows. I think that's what Fast and the Furious creators know, and that's why they're winning, like the Chinese, in terms of the box office success. Which let's be clear, informational warfare is one of the most important and highest levels of warfare. What is in the hearts and the minds of the people? The Sun King Louis XIV, who forced his dragonades, his dragoons, to at gunpoint convert and kill Protestants under his hyper unequal reign, with his mountains of gold and jewels and his paintings of himself with his stockings, and his Versailles court that he moved from their hometowns into his personal palace, reigning unjustly under feudalism, the capitalists who reign with their billions of dollars and their police and their militaries over the working classes, over the black slaves and the brown underpaid $3 armacol ice. Their power was maintained in large part through that illusory historiography, and the historiography, the fictional stories, and not just the history. History builds your identity and your place in the world, which builds who you are and who he is. Part of it's through fear, but a large part of it is belief in their God, their divine right, their power, their importance based on their casting department. That's all of the ermine capes, the golden crowns, the staffs, the palace, the knights, the 5 people. In Harvard Business School, they teach you need to have 3 to 5 people introduce you when you get to a higher level of, like the upper tier executive management. Have 3 to 5 people introduce you before you start speaking at any conference to illustrate your rank. It's all theatrics. It's why the office itself is about maintaining neo-feudal structures with the charade and the capitalist cinematic universe of office politics, of you in the little cubicle as a little peasant, and Mr. Oak desk corner office, beautiful view of the pristine blue ocean, and his personal secretaries and his 3 suits introducing him. You are lesser, and he makes the $50 million a year. You make the $10-15 an hour because you are but a peasant. Look at how important he is. That's why he makes so much money. Never mind that he's a mediocre fucking white racist, a white spoiled rich prick who is not competent in anything. But look at, it's all about the theatrics. That is the story. The office is the storytelling of modern neo-feudal capitalism, right? It is the Sears or the Walmart or the Google or whatever corporate office. It is the bank office, the court of the bank office that maintains that story, right? And so similarly, I'm gonna take this off. So similarly, without the storytelling, right? Without the storytelling of the office, and not just that, the storytelling of the movies that tell the story of the military, because everyone can't go and see what the U.S. military is doing. Without the stories of the success, right, of billionaire philanthropists armed to the playboys, without the stories of the success of America abroad, without the bombs and the G.I. Joes, right, telling this narrative in the history books, right, with the banning of critical race theory, without the critical race, without the false history, that the true history, which millions of teachers, the second largest teaching union says, we only ask for the right to teach true history to the children, and we will fight collectively in solidarity against any legal action taken against teachers in the banning of critical race theory in Florida and in dozens of other states, right? And that's why critical race is part of this very important part of the story of undoing the illusory Western Christian historiography, right? And without and I would argue, as important as that history in school that you learn in social studies, in History 101, in high school, learning about your Thomas Jeffersons and your George Washingtons, as important to that is the cinematic history that continues to impel and propagate the lie of Western greatness, American exceptionalism, capitalism conquering and being much greater than communism, Asia and yellow peril and authoritarian dictatorships being beneath and worth and America being justified in bombing them in Vietnam and Korea, and all of other America's wars that are none of them justified. And as the cinematic falls away, and the critical race and teachers, who, again, shout out to the teachers, working class people, who stand up and teach the true history to hundreds of millions of children who will be future Americans. As the illusions fall away, the capacity for the intelligence, the ruling class in Wall Street and the military, and the ones I've been talking about at length, to maintain their power, their money, their status, their nice things, and their capes and their gowns, and their ability to have, the new Versailles of Mr. Bloomberg's penthouse with levitating jacuzzis and 25 $10,000 a night strippers and their cold Mexican beer and their their roast beef sandwich and their Iron Chef Morimoto personally cooked squid ink pasta and their diamonds and their rubies and their Van Goghs and their Rembrandts. Their ability to maintain all of their nice bullshit things, and that's what they're worried about, will start to fall away. And so that's why they're worried, and that's part of what this represents, is one of the important pillars of historiography installation, the cinema, and all entertainment generally, is cracking here. That's what that represents. This is an important crack in the Western historiography. This should be Iron Man's 5 at number 1. It should be, right? Let's look at 2016 box office hits. It should be Disney movies, Rogue One, right? Captain America, Civil War, right? It should be, what was 2017? It should be Disney movie, Beauty and the Beast, 1.26 billion. Fate of Furious, they're actually pretty good there. So they were always coming up. Spider-Man, Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok. It should be all of these on the top, right? It should be Iron Man 3 in 2013, right? Disney movie, military industrial complex, billionaire philanthropist, arms dealer, Playboy movie, right? I mean, Hunger Games is a little bit different, but it's American movies. Actually, Hunger Games is a little bit better, but Guardians of the Galaxy, Disney movie, Captain America, Winter Soldier. That's what you want to see if you want to maintain your hegemony. What you don't want to see is Chinese movie about how socialism is good, actually, and the success of China. Chinese movie, fucking internationalist movie about working together, doing much better in China, badly depicting police, the world police, military, and rich pricks in Europe and the settler colonial countries. You don't want to see that. You're starting to lose the narrative now. You're starting to lose the global hegemony now. That's very important. Economically, the U.S. is losing. Cinematically, they're losing. Anyway, I've gone over this many times, so it's now 131. So anyways, in summary, I highly recommend watch the movie, if just nothing else, to support Vin Diesel, but safely. Do not get yourself sick. If you can pay for it, like at home, and you want to just watch it at home, pay for it, watch it at home. Don't see any of these other shitty movies if you can. Don't give them any money if you can help it. They don't need it. Disney has infinite money it can print out of its butt with the central bank that it runs. I mean, it doesn't run it, but that it works with the Wall Street and the plutocrat oligarch class that own America. They don't need any money. Their movies fucking suck on political grounds. I don't know what the hell's happening with Black Widow. I mean, you can watch the movies, like, we're watching the Loki show. Like, I mean, at least the thing about Loki is it's like in space. It's like he's a Asgardian god. It's not as, Thor and Loki are less lying about world politics, economics, and the U.S. military and police. You can't get away with that with Captain America. You can't get away with that with kind of Falcon, Winter Soldier. You can't get away with that with Iron Man, right? Thor, Loki, actually, and Thor in like Ragnarok, which is again directed by Taika Waititi, which that makes it different. It's like that one is less doing what all the stuff we're talking about, and I think it's not a mistake that it's Taika Waititi, who is an indigenous Maori director at the helm of it, and it's different. It's very different, and part of it is because Thor is kind of in a fictional fantasy world, He's not even Earth. He's not even an Earth Norse god. He's kind of like space sci-fi stuff. So that's it's different. You know, whereas when you're talking about literal Libya, right? What the U.S. and the military did in Libya, you can't talk about that without lying about it. Even Black Panther has that one part where the CIA helps an African country stay sovereign and maintain its resources and defends an African country's indigenous sovereignty. I mean, that's the one bullshit, right? Lots of other stuff are really good about Black Panther, but there's aspects of it like that are like, also Killmonger made to look like a terror, like he's all wrong and the bad guy. I can see like a lot of the black members who were backing that were like, I can just see Disney and the military industrial complex going, well, you're working with us, so you better we're gonna have final edit, so you better make it look like the CIA and the U.S. military look good, or we're gonna cut that out, and you ain't gonna make nothing, right? And also, you can have somebody say all kind of revolutionary stuff about we have to undo planetary colonialism, and Killmonger can say, you can have a black guy say all kind of revolutionary true stuff like Killmonger, but that guy needs to, like, I don't know, kill his girlfriend or something to make him look really bad, because that's like all bad stuff. It's kind of like the black guy in the black like revolutionary leader in Con Air. You make him be like an evil criminal, like he's like as bad as Jeffrey Dahmer and serial killers, right? Black leftist leaders are just as bad as them. Otherwise, we're not gonna let you make this movie in America. So anyways, spoil rich pricks. But the good news is, spoil rich pricks versus international family. So, and again, this is like, again, if for all the Americans, I mean, I'm just saying, like, this is the way that which things are going. This is the direction in which the world is moving. I've done an entire whole thing about Riddick, so I'm not gonna do that again. But I recommend watching the Riddick universe. Riddick is a show about abolishing the space police and makes the space world police, the U.S. military, look terrible, and a bunch of killers and barbarians and warmongers. They're called the necromongers, right? And they're extremely religious Christian coded people too. And so a lot of those films and a lot of those games and a lot of those movies get written off as just dumb popcorn movies, or the script was mediocre, it's boring, this and that. Vin is not a good actor. Vin is a criminal. Don't watch it because he's an evil criminal, right? That's all racism and anti-blackness and anti-people of color bullshit. I really recommend anybody who is like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna watch on this evening. I have free time. I want to watch a movie or play a game and something entertaining. Like, check out all of this. Like, check out all of the, I mean, I haven't watched every Fast and Furious, to be honest, but F9 is worth watching, I think. All of the Riddick films and the Riddick games. I just played Butcher's Bay. Chronicles of Riddick, Pitch Black. They have been right and they have been ahead of the antidote to illusory Western historiography, which is Chinese success, Chinese example, Chinese economics, socialism with Chinese characteristics, and ultimately Chinese cinema. And Chinese success in international and backing internationalist socialist cinema, ultimately, right? And Vin was ahead of that in Chronicles of Riddick in the 90s when America was deep in its ruling imperial apex, when it was beginning its forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And so really, I really recommend anybody, if you're like, I don't know what to watch, go back and rewatch it. Think about it in the context of, imagine the necromongers as the U.S. empire. Imagine, right? Just look at the black Muslims being the most empathetic and relatable characters in this show, right? These are speaking, again, just what is normalized in the world, as opposed to Argentina being full of drug dealers, which is what they wanted Fast 2 to be about. Right? As opposed to Captain America, as opposed to Elon Musk crossed with the Koch brother and Bill Gates saving the world. That is the complete opposite narrative with the US military's help. Riddick is saying something completely the opposite. You might miss all of that, and I missed a lot of it when I first watched it, and you might subconsciously know something is different and not get it till later. But if you come back and watch it again, watch it and like play those again, and think about it again in that new context. Think about it in the context of there are Polygon articles going, hey, Mass Effect maybe is bad because maybe we shouldn't be centering the space police. Maybe it's time to abolish the space police. Riddick was already there, you know. Butcher's Bay, Pitch Black was already about that way 20 years ago. So anyway, I'm just saying. I don't think it's a mistake that he was like from a working class family and is a poor multiracial person of color in shithole New York City. Anyways, I say that as a multiracial working class descendant from people of color in a giant shitty Manhattan in the tropics. It's called Honolulu. So I think I relate to a lot of it because I probably have some similar experiences. I know I do. I know Dave Bautista has similar experiences as well. Anyways, that's the end of the stream because I've been streaming for a long time. Liz Fain says, don't tell Dallas, she'll get mad when she enjoys Riddick. Anyways, we are basically done because I gotta get off and eat food. However, don't forget that Neofeud is on sale. Sorry, it's not on sale. Neofeud is a game that also does not pull punches when it comes to, you know, police, the U.S. police under a capitalist white supremacist elite, and as the enforcers of that, beating up, shooting innocent, marginalized people, and then the capitalist tech companies, corporations, and the government covering up and complicit in the murder. Whether social workers killing indigenous, marginalized people, which Canada has done in its residential schools, and then during and after that. I do not pull punches with that. And Neofeud is a game about is anti-capitalist, anti-racist, anti-imperialist, anti-colonial ultimately, because Hawaii is an illegal colonial occupation of Hawaii. And it's a game that's about those experiences. Growing up, again, as I said, as a person of color, broke, working full-time and making enough money to live in a Mazda Tribute, eat spoonfuls of peanut butter for dinner, with my wife and kids, you know, eating frozen carrots with some ramen thrown in often, because that's the healthiest thing we could get in a food desert with no money for food. This is a game that's a cyberpunk game that is full of humor and comedy and satire, particularly if you like William Gibson, William Gibson, Ghost in the Shell, Matrix. If you grew up in the 80s and you were a gamer, watch action movies, any kind of nerd, you liked a lot of, you know what I'll be back really means. You know, you might find more, but it's a game that is definitely a game on. I don't pretend like I'm not making a left game, and it's a game that if you can leave in a very short review, it really helps us out, because it does increase the likelihood that we will get seen in the algorithm and people will play the game, and that means that we will continue to run. And if you are like one of those like you know, if you're really into the original Bread and Hammer and Sickle Daddies, Neofeud explored the depths that make up our capitalist reality, and I found the game to be a multidimensional representation of Marx's Das Kapital. It is received as a labor of love that speaks to the cultural references of our generation. So, yeah, Neofeud is definitely that. It is a game that if you're like, hey, I'm kind of on the left, and I want to play something that is like not just some generic entertainment. Neofeud is an overtly left game. I don't pretend like I don't make those. That's why I couldn't get published, because America doesn't publish in its capitalist game companies games that call out the system that made the CEO all of his yacht payments. You can also find Neofeud on itch.io for Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can get it on sale there as well. You can also get it without digital rights management if you don't like DRM. You don't like Steam. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud. Here on Patreon, you can get also access to the Discord, Silver Spook community. You can also get access to the updates on what I'm working on Neofeud 2 beforehand, and you can also support us in what we do here at the Silver Spook Hui, which is a Hawaiian word and a Chinese word that means cooperative, and it also means what is all this crap? Anyways, you can follow at Silver Spook Games, at Octodon.social. And on Mastodon, Mastodon is a decentralized, non-capitalist controlled social media platform that is like Twitter, but without billionaires and mega corporations, like Disney and all of its Marvel movies, without the backing of the military and industrial complex and Wall Street, determining who gets to see what in the censorship of the government and corporate censorship of the United States by Twitter, as well as other social media entities that remove things when they're inconvenient for fossil fuel corporations, the military, and whoever else will pay them to remove people from the platform. So that is Mastodon. You can also follow, while we have access to the Death Star satellites, at Silverspook Guy on Twitter, and you can also follow at Silverspook Guy, and if you want to follow the games related stuff, you can follow at Silverspook Games minus the E in silver. For like Neofeud 2, Neofeud screenshots from Neofeud 2 when it's coming out, Neofeud 1 when it goes on sale, and other games related things. You can also follow at Terminus C. Terminus Cyberstar is a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim in the late 90s PC games vein like Deus Ex 1 and System Shock 2. It's like a Cyberpunk 2077, but not a AAA game, not with billionaires being made at the highest level by exploiting the writers, musicians, artists, programmers. Silverspook Games and Terminus Cyberstar is being made by a small team in 5 or 6 people who are currently still working on this game. It is also very political, as I have said, and it's not on the left edge of the spectrum because you're playing a illegal immigrant who escaped from an ICE concentration camp at the United States border, being locked up for being brown. Kamala Harris said, "Do not come or I will lock your ass up, Honduran." And then you came, and then you got locked up, and then you escaped, and then ICE is hunting you down. So you're trying to survive in a dystopia as a Hispanic migrant, but in the game it's in a space setting. But what it amounts to is just trying to survive anti-alien racism in the alien isolation facility for the aliens. So again, using science fiction aliens metaphors, but not in a way to back racism like that shitty sci-fi story did, that I was written by some white lawyer. That's part of the problem. But also from California, but also because I still think there are ways to use metaphors of aliens and other species to deal with racism and other topics in a not shitty way. But that's an important topic in this game. One of the major missions is called Universal Death Care, where you have to try to get healthcare by breaking into a hospital without getting murdered and without dying from your internal organs exploding because you can't afford to pay for the kidney rent. So it's a very political, anti-capitalist game, and overtly the police are out to fucking kill you, or to take you away and put you in a deep dark cage. So it's a game like the Riddick universe. The main character is kind of like Riddick. The main character kind of looks like Riddick, actually. And that is not a mistake. I was inspired in this game by aspects of the Riddick universe. Anyways, so that's Terminus Cyberstar. And also, you can follow that and then join the Discord if you want to do that. The game will be wishlistable sometime in the near future, so I do recommend checking it out if you want to get it wishlisted. You can become a patron or grab Neofeud and help Holly and I have a roof. Anyway, I already said, what am I reading my own message at the bottom? That's been up there for the whole hours. Thank you very much, all of these people on the list right here. Okay, one time I'm gonna read it because I haven't read it in a long time, but I'm gonna take a deep breath. Dave, James Wheaton, Minx Little, Mr. Brewer, Kyle Rapp, Belinda Taylor, Kiara Kapabar, Maxime Boileau, Industrial Robot, Johnny C, Alana Montero, Sean Conlon, Danny Cara, Eric Wright, Jared, Morgan Swampcraft, The Reaver, Tyler Hill, Ray 55, Matthew Stone, Alexander, Roy Gabriel House, Alfonso Delazar, Combo Breaker, Lark Milo, Skylar Smith, Philip Dodson, Tim, Kabutazux, Raph, Tiny Earl, Michael McAllister, Extremely Online Left, Charlington Beast Code, Kaj, Dename, Adam M. Smith, Matthew Stone, J. Owen, Sean Lynch, Jose Antonio Hernandez, Turbida, Mass Casualty, Roll Quinn, Rust, Brendan Long, William RDT, Sage Sharp, Christopher Strom, Quid Londo, Ongzo Spring, Sean Baum, Jay McBroderick, Sierra Banks, Jan Jinx, and Ashton Green. All right, everybody, thanks so much. All right, I mean, that's not too bad, but that's a good number of names. I will be, yes. Before I said at the beginning, I will be taking the 12th and 19th off, so don't expect any streams. I gotta be entertaining family, so don't expect anything. I'm gonna try to upload something to the channel, maybe. But we're gonna be very busy in this week It's the only week where this will be like this. Almost any other week of the year, it will be fine. But so this is the 1 week I'll be taking off. But I will be back today at 9. Also on Monday, what is it? Is it 5:30 to 6:20? I will be at the Games for Change conference in a panel with a lot of my indigenous friends on indigenous people in game development, including Santo Avera Ojeda, Naftali Faulkner, also known as Vasilikov, creator of Umurangi Generation, indigenous person from Maori, another Asian Pacific Islander, indigenous person. I've been on many panels before with Naftali, and that will be on Monday, 5:30 Eastern time. Look out for that. And but other than that, yeah, I'm not gonna be around for a bit, so I'm not gonna be streaming for a bit. Until next time, keep your mirror safe polished. Be excellent to each other. I'm sorry I didn't look at a lot of chat, but I don't do that on this one. I'll look at it more on Twitch. You know, keep your mirror safe polished. Be excellent to each other. Watch Fast 9. You don't have to watch. I mean, I can tell you what to watch and don't watch. Support Fast 9 so they can make a Riddick 5. I want Riddick 5. This is my ulterior motive for all of this. I just want Riddick 5. I don't care about international imperialism. And who cares? Colonialism, capitalism, burn the world. Who gives a shit? I'll watch Riddick 5 on my incinerated bit of a piece of plastic with a bunch of frickin' chud-ass Nazis, you know, coming with nuclear bombs strapped to their backs. I'll watch it on that. You know, who cares about international stopping World War and colonialism, capitalism? All I want is Riddick 5. I'm just kidding. Safely watch Fast 9 if you can. If you can do it from your house, do that. Don't get sick. Don't get COVID-19. It's terrible. All right. Take it easy, everybody.